I became the god of light. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction. So please don't attempt real magic, the results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 452: Gamma Ray Explosion. The gods were puzzled, unsure of the meaning of hidden, or what would happen in a few days. They assumed hidden might refer to something, but they hadn't even considered the possibility of a god fully comprehending the rules in such a short time. It defied common sense. Furthermore, hidden was still a considerable distance from the complete understanding of the rules, making it absolutely impossible to complete them in just a few days. Therefore, they hadn't even considered this possibility. Suyun didn't say much, simply instructing them to wait. The warriors could only wait quietly, filled with doubt. In this dim space, apart from the azure energy clusters and the lingering black mist, everything was utterly silent. In this deathly still environment, the perception of time seemed to be distorted, and 3 days passed quickly. Suyun, who had been sitting quietly with his eyes closed on a divine chair formed from divine power, suddenly sensed something, and a slight smile appeared on his lips. The divine stone space. Suyun's main body immediately focused his attention on his body, gazing intently at the divine spark. Just moments ago, after his tireless efforts and countless hardships, he had finally fully comprehended the rules. At the same moment, he sensed something amiss with his divine spark. Gazing at the pure white, holy, 90-faceted, dazzling divine spark, a feeling arose within him, surprising him. Just like the feeling during advancement, as long as he let go, the divine spark could undergo unknown transformations. After a moment of contemplation, he decisively released the restrictions. In an instant, the divine spark underwent a change. Buzz, the pure white divine spark emitted a soft hum. What followed, to Suyun's astonishment, was different from before. A strange fluctuation emanated from within the divine spark, the fluctuation of the rules. The fluctuation of the rules grew stronger and stronger, until finally a distorted, invisible fire of rules appeared, surging and burning the divine spark. In an instant, the divine spark was forged into a pool of pure white matter, then rapidly shaped. As the shape took form, a dazzling, pure white divine spark with 99 facets, radiating vast fluctuations of the rules, floated quietly within the divine spark space. Just as Suyun was still reeling from his surprise and thought everything was over, another unexpected turn of events occurred. Buzz buzz buzz, with a soft hum, the aura of rules emanating from the divine spark grew increasingly intense, gradually becoming ethereal and transparent. A ray of dazzling white light bloomed on it, then intensified. What? Suyun's expression changed. He sensed something was wrong. He keenly felt that not only was the white light intensifying, but the divine spark itself was doing the same, or rather, the divine spark had transformed into that white light. Before he could take any action, the white light emanated from the divine spark space and merged with his divine body, filling every corner of his form. In that instant, a strange sensation washed over him. Suyun felt somewhat dazed, as if he had transformed into light, becoming one with it. It was as if he was about to enter the world, transforming into that eternal, unchanging light. Suyun's spirit jolted, and at the last moment, he broke free from that feeling. Not only was the timing not right, but during his advancement, a strong sense of crisis washed over him under the influence of divine perception. It seemed that as long as he advanced, he would face an unprecedented crisis, a near-death experience. Suyun's expression changed, and he immediately understood. It's a true god. His heart was heavy, and even the joy of his transformation vanished. At this moment, when he was full of power after his transformation, the only being who could still evoke such a strong sense of crisis and give him a feeling of near death could be a true god. This feeling also reminded him of the extent of the gap between him and a true god. I am now about 120 times stronger than a normal level 9 state. In this state, I have no power to resist. Suyun remained silent. Fortunately, I still have a path to take. If it weren't for the path of the evil god, he wouldn't know what he would do in the end. Perhaps he would risk breaking through, but then his life or death would be uncertain. At least breaking the seal of the evil god would attract attention, and other banquet members would share the risk. Like casting a net, some would always escape. He believed in his luck. After thinking about all this, Su-Yun began to feel the changes within himself. Radiance filled every corner of his divine body, as if his body were composed of light. Focusing his attention on his body, he discovered that his divine spark and the characters had vanished, and the divine spark space had also disappeared without a trace. Of course, that wasn't quite right. The divine spark space was truly gone, but the divine spark and the characters had merged with him. Su-Yun felt that he was now the embodiment of the rules of light. This feeling was incredibly strong, and he knew his guess was correct. Moreover, only one last step left, Su-Yun murmured. After completing his transformation, he knew how to advance to true God. It sounded easy. As long as he completed the final step of entering the world, he could advance to true God. There were no other bottlenecks or requirements. It was extremely simple. However, such a simple action was incredibly difficult to perform. The world itself wasn't the obstacle, but other true gods would hinder him. Su-Yun sighed inwardly, then thought of something. I wonder if I can advance in the real world. He wouldn't be satisfied without trying. With a glimmer of hope, he opened the small black sphere, and his radiant divine body entered the real world. As soon as he returned to his bedroom, he eagerly unleashed his senses, attempting to merge with the universe. In an instant, he felt his divine body about to dissipate, transforming into endless light. But at the last moment, something crucial was missing, and the process was halted. As expected, Su-Yun shook his head in disappointment. At this moment, he felt the difference between the real world and the other world. Su-Yun sighed, reopened the small black sphere, and returned to the other world from his bedroom. Back in the divine stone space, he focused his attention on his clone. After his main body's transformation, some of Su-Yun's emotions and actions immediately attracted the attention of the other gods. The prophet's face was full of doubt as he asked, "Secret, what's wrong?" The resurrected ones also looked over. "Nothing." Su-Yun shook his head first, then said, "The rules are complete now." As he spoke, he extended his right hand, and a white light emanated from it. The gods were stunned, thinking they had misheard, until they sensed the aura of rule swirling within the white light, and their expressions changed. "Ah, complete," the warrior exclaimed, dumbfounded. In an instant, the gods, who had been watching quietly, widened their eyes as if they had seen something unbelievable. "How is this possible?" Resurrection exclaimed in astonishment. Several exclamations rang out as they stared at the scene in disbelief. "Hidden secret, you've fully comprehended the rules." Prophecy's old face stiffened. Although the facts were right in front of him, he still wanted to confirm. Su-Yun nodded. The gods gasped, feeling their thoughts were somewhat confused. In the perception, Hidden Secret's rules were still some distance from completeness, requiring at least several decades to comprehend. Now, they were complete in just a few days. If they were modern people, they would definitely be exclaiming, "Holy crap, how did you do that?" Resurrection asked, his eyes wide. "Was it all just their imagination before?" "You meant by a few days earlier." Observation's face twitched. The gods then remembered that Hidden Secret had indeed said a few days ago that he would wait a few days. They thought it was something else, but it turned out he had fully comprehended the rules. Facing the gods' strange looks, Su-Yun smiled without saying a word, choosing not to answer. Without his reply, the prophets could only speculate and fill in their own imaginations. Some thought Hidden was indeed mysterious, living up to its name. Others thought he was a freak. Still others wondered if Hidden had used some method to conceal his aura of power. In short, all sorts of thoughts swirled, but regardless of their interpretations, the gods' emotions were far from calm, their gazes towards Hidden filled with strangeness. After a while, the warrior's eyes suddenly lit up, and he laughed loudly. "Haha, Hidden, aren't you even stronger now? How about a fight?" As he spoke, his eyes were filled with excitement and longing as he looked at Su-Yun, like he had spotted a prey of equal strength, yearning for a thrilling battle. Before Su-Yun could speak, Resurrection exclaimed happily, "I agree. I also want to see Hidden's power." The prophet's interest also piqued. They all thought the suggestion was good. Su-Yun's lips twitched slightly, and he quickly refused. "No, thank you." A regretful sigh followed, and the gods felt somewhat disappointed, feeling they had missed a good show. A battle between powerful warriors and mysterious secrets. It was intriguing no matter how you looked at it. However, since the secrets had refused, they couldn't force it. The warriors were filled with disappointment. Seeing this, the prophet eased the tension, saying, "The secret rules have been fully comprehended, proceed according to plan. This time, a true God is involved, a single misstep could lead to our demise. Everyone, are you prepared?" His words caused a sudden silence, a sense of unease filling the gods' hearts. A true God. The thought of facing a true God filled them with a suffocating feeling. The more powerful and knowledgeable the true God, the more insignificant they felt. "No, I want to wait." Resurrection gritted his teeth. The gods looked over. Resurrection smoothed his hair and explained, "I didn't expect the operation to go so smoothly. There are still some arrangements I haven't made. I want to be ready before breaking the seal." "Time?" the spirit suddenly asked. Resurrection hesitated for a moment, then said, "Give me a few years." The spirit frowned, about to say something. But before he could speak, another being spoke up. "I also have some preparations I haven't made," the inverted being said hesitantly. The spirit's brow furrowed even more. The prophecy seemed to sense the spirit's impatience and said, "Since resurrection and reversal still require preparation, let's wait. It won't take long. We were already planning to wait until the Hidden One had fully comprehended the rules. With such a short time, waiting won't hurt." He paused, then added, "Facing a true God, none of us are completely confident. More preparation is always a good thing." Having said so much, the spirit, though somewhat impatient, could only endure it. Suyun pondered for a moment, realizing he also needed to make some preparations, and agreed. Then they made a plan. Their clones would guard the area in case of any unforeseen circumstances, while their main body would prepare. Divine stone space. Suyun's main body opened his eyes, a mysterious and complex light flashing within them. Facing a true God, my current strength is insufficient, he frowned in thought. Suddenly, he remembered the photon system and immediately began analyzing and calculating it. All the information in his memory began to be processed one by one under the photon system's light speed calculations. A few minutes later, the photon system calculated something. From the information available, the probability of defeating a true God was 0, but the probability of escaping was. Suyun's eyes lit up. At the same time, several plans that could increase the chances of escape were listed by the photon system. A cold voice replied. Plan 1, Dark Authority. Dark Authority, Suyun pondered, having to admit the feasibility of this plan. According to the photon system's calculations, this was indeed a way to enhance strength, and even in the final calculations, a tiny probability was calculated, the probability of authority mutation. When light and darkness intersect, a completely new authority might be born, a more powerful and mysterious authority. Although this possibility was very low, even the smallest one was possible. Facing a true God, I can't let go of any method to increase my strength, Suyun had already decided, and then he prepared to acquire the Dark Authority. Moreover, the photon system's calculations also listed the possible methods to acquire the Dark Authority. Playing the role of the Dark God. The system's calculations indicate that the thoughts and actions of numerous otherworldly beings, conforming to authority, are highly likely related to the acquisition of that authority. A role playing in another world, Suyun's lips curled slightly, finding it intriguing. Besides the Dark Authority plan, there was another plan to enhance strength. Gamma Ray Burst. This was the most powerful offensive divine technique calculated by the system from the information. In the real world, a gamma ray burst is currently the most powerful explosive phenomenon known in the universe. Theoretically, it is produced by the collapse and explosion of a massive star when its fuel is exhausted, or by the merger of two nearby compact stars, black holes, or neutron stars. Gamma ray bursts can last from 1/1000th of a second to several hours, releasing enormous amounts of energy in a short period. Compared to the sun, the energy it releases in a few minutes is equivalent to the total sunlight output over trillions of years. The energy of a single photon emitted is typically hundreds of thousands of times that of typical sunlight. A gamma ray burst is a terrifying catastrophe in the real universe, unleashing unparalleled power. It could even sweep across the Milky Way, turning it into a galactic stream. And gamma ray bursts, in essence, are just photons. With my authority, I should be able to do it. Suyun's eyes gleamed, 2 chapters combined. Thanks to Elder Black Cat in the Rain for the 500 coin reward. Thanks to It's Hard to Change My Name for the 500 coin reward. Chapter 453 On the Eve of the True God, 4,000 words. Gamma ray bursts, as the highest form of light energy, release terrifying power and energy. This powerful attack is not only beyond the current capabilities of humanity, but also in the foreseeable future, humanity will have no way to defend against it. Because gamma-ray bursts travel at the speed of light, by the time they can be observed, they have already reached Earth, making early observation and warning impossible. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the aftershocks of a gamma-ray burst may have struck Earth, causing a mass extinction and a massive loss of oxygen. And this was only the aftershock effect. If a gamma-ray burst were to directly impact Earth, it would not only destroy life on Earth, but the Earth itself would be completely vaporized and vanish into nothingness. It is truly terrifying. Su-Yun guessed that, with his authority, he could simulate this terrifying cosmic force without any surprises. After all, it is just a form of light, still within his control. Thinking of the power of gamma-ray bursts, the highest energy release pattern of light, Su-Yun couldn't even imagine how strong he would need to be. Perhaps he could even put up a fight against a true god. Anticipation shone in Su-Yun's eyes. Besides these, the photon system has also listed a final escape route. If the methods to enhance strength don't work, then escape is the only option. However, the success rate varies depending on the method of escape. Even using a divine artifact for special teleportation has a very low probability of success, according to the photon system's calculations. He himself isn't a god of space. If he possessed special authority, the success rate might be acceptable, but borrowing power from divine artifacts is out of the question. Of course, even without special authority, it doesn't mean Su-Yun doesn't have something comparable to escape with. The little black ball, this incredibly mysterious object, capable of transporting him between other worlds and the real world, whose secrets even he can't yet uncover. This is also the only item that, according to the system's calculations, Su-Yun has the highest probability of escaping. A true god represents the unknown, and the little black ball also represents the unknown. Facing a true god, it should at least offer some resistance, right? Of course, this is a last resort after all other plans have failed. If all these preparations are useless, then I'll just accept my fate. Su-Yun smiled helplessly, feeling he had done enough. If he lost, there was nothing he could do. Besides these, he also needed to prepare faith crystals during this time to enhance his strength in crucial moments. Thinking about earning faith crystals, Su-Yun suddenly remembered the transparent bead he had once obtained, the one that could conceal the aura and sound of other objects and possessed mysterious abilities. Perhaps it was time to put his idea of making jars and opening them for others into practice. With a thought, Su-Yun retrieved the transparent bead from his special ring and teleported it to the altar outside. Then, he used faith threads to transmit the details to the old priest, instructing him to follow the procedure. After finishing these tasks, Su-Yun began studying the gamma-ray god-slaying technique. He used his phone to collect information about gamma rays and quickly absorbed it. A dozen minutes later, relying on his understanding of the rules, Su-Yun easily grasped the technique. He raised his right hand, and a ray of light emanated from it. However, unlike ordinary light, since gamma rays are invisible, this ray was formless and colorless. As soon as it was released, a large amount of radiant energy immediately surged forth. Such powerful energy, Su-Yun exclaimed in surprise. A thought struck him, and he forcibly imbued the ray of light with color using the rules. It shifted between red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and violet, finally transforming into dazzling white light. The gamma rays were created. Next came the divine magic. Suddenly, Su-Yun's expression froze. Just as he was about to study the divine magic, he discovered an unknown power gestating within his body. Characters, they don't need followers anymore. Su-Yun's face was filled with astonishment. Before, to create characters, besides honing his abilities to the extreme, all he needed were followers to imagine them. Now, he had only just created gamma rays, and after merely contemplating the idea of a gamma ray-based divine magic, it appeared naturally. I am gradually shedding the limitations of followers. Su-Yun felt a strange premonition. He knew this might only be the beginning. The real change would occur when he became a true god. Su-Yun shook his head, not wanting to think further. It's a pity it still needs time to be born. I wonder if becoming a true god will change things, he thought with some regret. Since the divine magic was being created, he focused his attention on the dark authority. In contemplation, a plan gradually took shape. The best way to gain the acceptance of all living beings is to make the sun disappear. How can darkness arise if light doesn't disappear? However, Su-yoon hesitated. Making the sun disappear was indeed a good method, but also a very dangerous one. For example, wouldn't it directly offend all the gods and other ordinary gods? Even the gods of rules, Su-yoon wasn't afraid of. If they came, he could even teach them to be gods. But this didn't include true gods. During the operation, who knew if a true god would dislike him and casually crush him? Of course, that possibility was very small. The most likely scenario was that they were watching him, waiting for the fruit to ripen and then harvesting it. After thinking for a long time, considering the pros and cons, Su-yoon decided to proceed according to the plan, but with a slight modification. Maintain the state of darkness, and shorten it as much as possible. However, for safety, this task would be carried out by his clone while his physical body remained in place. After making the decision, he immediately summoned back the other of the two clones created by his clone artifact and merged them with his physical body. It's time to see this world. Even with his current strength, he hadn't properly explored this other world. This was a perfect opportunity to see what it was like. Tens of thousands of meters above the ground, Su-yoon's clone, carrying his physical body, appeared and continued its rapid ascent. 10,000 meters, 1,000,000 meters. At this altitude, the air became incredibly cold, and the pressure from the world constantly weighed on him, as if protected by a natural protective layer. Unfortunately, this negligible pressure posed no obstacle to him whatsoever. The higher he flew, the smaller the objects below became, until everything on Earth came into view. Complete, Su-yoon was astonished to find that even at this height, he hadn't seen the continent split. Surprised, he continued his ascent. 5,000,000 meters, 10,000,000 meters. At this altitude, Su-yoon gradually stopped, as he had approached the world's limit. Looking up, an endless starry sky appeared. The starry sky was filled with all sorts of colorful starlight, a breathtakingly beautiful sight. Of course, besides the starlight, the strongest feeling he got was one of emptiness and desolation. Apart from a huge sun in the distance and a slightly smaller silver moon, only the shadows of stars appeared in the far distance. Glancing at the distant sun, Su-yoon discovered that it was enormous, no smaller than the sun in the real world, constantly radiating vast and terrifying energy, causing distortions and ripples in space-time. As for the silver moon, it was different from the one in the real world. Su-yoon stretched out his hand, his eyes fixed on his palm. Strands of silver light appeared on his hand, swirling around like silver ribbons. This moon actually emitted its own light. He stared at the silver moon in astonishment for a few moments. After looking at the sky, Su-yoon looked down. The earth is still intact, he said, somewhat surprised. The sea, his gaze instinctively turned to the distance, trying to find the sea. Then he paused. In the far distance, a line of deep blue, almost black ocean appeared before his eyes. Looking around, he found that the sea enveloped the entire landmass. The sea is the end of the world. Due to the limitations of his vision, Su-yoon was somewhat suspicious, wondering if the other world was round. Although the world didn't seem round from the scenery, who knew how big it was? Maybe there were continents beyond the sea? Curious, he decided to go and see. With a swift movement, he chose to fly eastward. Like a shooting star streaking across the sky, a dazzling white light flashed by. On the ground, some powerful gods saw the shooting star on the horizon and were secretly alarmed. What kind of being is this? As he flew, Su-yoon's face became somewhat numb. He realized that the sea was approaching at a snail's pace in his eyes. This distance. More than an hour later, the sea finally appeared completely in his eyes. The seawater was so blue it was almost black, like a gaping maw ready to devour anyone. Everyone who saw this sea felt a sense of the unknown and fear from the bottom of their hearts. Because no one knew if some monster was lurking in the depths of this sea. Moreover, the sea was not calm, it frequently surged with towering waves, displaying a capricious and unpredictable nature. Looking down from high above, Su-yoon saw no continent, only the vast ocean and nothing else. He glanced indifferently at the sea a few times, then looked away and continued on his way. After flying for a few more minutes, he suddenly saw something on the sea and stopped abruptly. A ship, in his vision, a brown sailboat, about 10 meters long, appeared on the water. However, its condition was far from good. A fierce wind was howling below, and torrential rain and raging waves were sweeping everything away. Although the ship was not small, in the boundless sea and relentless weather, it was like a leaf, vulnerable to being destroyed at any moment. Su-yoon casually scanned the ship with his spiritual energy, about to continue his journey. Suddenly, he paused, drawn by the people on board and the voices coming from them. Orcs. A look of surprise flashed in his eyes. On the stormy sea, a chorus of cries erupted from the wooden ship, which was tossed about by the giant waves. "It's over. It's over. We're doomed," a young man cried out in a rough voice. Upon closer inspection, the voice belonged to a strong, humanoid creature with a bull's head. He was clinging to the mast, tears and snot streaming down his face. The raging rain and wind whipped at him, his face contorted with terror. "What are you yelling about? One more sound and I'll throw you overboard." A burly, middle-aged minotaur gripped a rope, glaring at him fiercely. The young minotaur jumped in fright, shutting his mouth in terror, daring not to utter another sound. Besides these two, there were more than a dozen other minotaurs on the boat. At this moment, one of the middle-aged minotaurs said bitterly, "It's all your fault, Minotaur. If you hadn't believed that brat on the boat, we wouldn't be in this mess." As he spoke, a wave crashed in, shaking the boat and causing the people on board to scream in terror. The middle-aged minotaur, filled with fear, felt his resentment grow even stronger. At this moment, the burly minotaur, Niuda, heard his words and roared in fury, "This is my fault, but you all agreed to it. If you hadn't agreed, I wouldn't have come looking for that damned end of the sea." He was filled with resentment as he spoke. "It's all that kid's fault." He said that the end of the sea had inexhaustible food and endless wealth. The person being complained about by the minotaurs was trembling in the cabin. In the messy cabin, a young man was desperately praying towards the wooden ship, wailing, "God, protect me. Whoever saves me, I will be your devout follower from now on." After praying for a while and seeing no effect, he murmured in despair, Why did I come to this place?" High in the sky, Su-Yun frowned. "What does end of the sea mean?" And that person, he noticed something strange, which made him pay more attention to the young man. The clothes the young man wore surprised him greatly. Unlike the Minotaur's brown linen clothes, this guy's clothes were not only smooth but also black, indicating a significantly higher level of craftsmanship. Su-Yun pondered for a moment, thinking that the end of the sea should be his destination, and the young man was also strange, so he decided to rescue him and check him out. After glancing at his body, he smiled slightly, and his faintly glowing body changed. The light began to disappear, and darkness enveloped him, making him indistinct. When the surrounding light shone on him, it seemed to be absorbed, creating an eerie atmosphere. After completing his disguise, he quickly descended. In the torrential rain, an enormous wave swept in, causing the Minotaurs to scream in despair. "It's over, we're doomed." The shadow of the wave made the Minotaurs almost wet themselves in fear. Suddenly, a scene that stunned them and terrified them even more appeared. The wave froze in midair, and darkness and shadows followed. Looking up, the sky had darkened. A black shadow that blotted out the sun was slowly descending from the sky. Compared to it, even the wave seemed incredibly small. A layer of darkness descended, and then everything calmed down. The waves disappeared, the wind died down, and the storm subsided. 4,000 words combined into one chapter. I'll finish another chapter later, but I suggest reading it tomorrow morning. Chapter 454 The End of the World. The entire sky, as far as the eye could see, was shrouded in darkness. And in the deeper darkness, a gigantic black shadow seemed to be slowly writhing, filling the air with terror. On the now quiet sea, all the Minotaurs froze, too afraid to move. Tears streamed down their faces, their expressions gradually crumbling with fear. What was this? No one dared to utter a sound. Trembling, a few Minotaurs couldn't help themselves. A sudden heat rose from beneath them, and a foul odor filled the air. Just as the silence settled, a creaking sound came from a wooden door opening. The cabin door was flung open, and a blond, blue-eyed, somewhat disheveled young man stepped out. He began, "What?" The young man, barely out of his mouth, suddenly realized something was wrong. It was too silent, too dark. The ship wasn't moving at all, and the Minotaurs were like wooden statues. Instinctively, he slowly looked up. Black, a writhing darkness. "Ah!" the young man screamed, staggering and falling, trembling as he stared at the sky. Darkness itself is terrifying to living beings, let alone such overwhelming darkness. The youth's scream acted as a catalyst, triggering a series of terrified cries. The Minotaurs, in their fear, tried to run into the cabin, but before they could move, an invisible force descended, binding them completely and rendering them immobile. Instantly, the stench in the air intensified. The blond, blue-eyed youth trembled, thinking, Which evil god is this? The thought of the evil god, considered an enemy by the Church of the Righteous God, filled him with even greater fear. Even the followers of that evil god were incredibly terrifying. The Church had to pay a heavy price to eradicate them, let alone the evil god himself. If this was truly an evil god, gulp, he swallowed hard. He would die, he would definitely die. Just as he was about to faint from fright, a strange voice rang out. The end of the sea. The voice sounded like a question. The blonde youth froze, and the minotaurs were also stunned. In their fear, one of the clever minotaurs jolted awake, as if grasping at a straw. Without regard for accuracy, he hastily stammered, "Yes, yes, we're going to the end of the sea." Before Suyun, disguised as the god of darkness, could ask further questions, not only did the minotaur spill the beans, but even the blonde youth, in his terror, revealed his origins. The other side of the world. Suyun paused, taken aback. According to the blonde youth, he had arrived here after a strange shipwreck. His last sight was of the end of the sea. Interesting. Suyun's lips curled into a slight smile, his interest in the end of the sea growing even stronger. Since these people are so eager to go, I'll give them a ride. He decided to give them a one-way ticket, hoping they wouldn't regret it later. He unleashed a divine power that extinguished the white light and obliterated the light surrounding the divine power, enveloping the entire wooden ship. To the minotaur and the blonde youth, it appeared as a wave of darkness descended. Screams erupted one after another. They thought the dark entity was going to kill them. Only after a while, when nothing happened, did they calm down. Enveloped in darkness, they felt as if they were moving, but weren't quite sure. After an unknown amount of time, the wooden boat stopped. Suyun led the boat to the edge of the sea, where he was now surveying the place. A thick, transparent barrier, a spatial barrier, blocked their path, and below, an astonishing scene unfolded. Boom! A tremendous sound resounded. The seawater at the edge of the barrier, which should have been still, was now flowing downwards, forming an incredibly wide waterfall against a backdrop of the white spatial barrier, the sound of the flowing water echoing. This peculiar sight astonished Suyun. There really is another side to the world. In his confusion, he channeled a lot of air into the divine power supporting the wooden boat, and then, with a splash, plunged directly into the sea. The moment he entered the water, a massive current pulled him in, as if to drag him into a bottomless abyss of darkness. Suyun didn't care. Not only did he not resist, he even added more force to plunge deeper. Of course, he didn't care about the creatures other than him. During his descent, many marine animals appeared in his field of vision. There were small fish and huge ones, but no matter what kind, they could only struggle helplessly in the currents. After reaching a certain depth, they were even crushed and their blood foamed out. However, some did escape this fate. Some extraordinary creatures that shimmered with strange light managed to struggle out. After taking a few glances, Suyun focused on descending 10,000 meters. At this depth, he could hardly see any ordinary creatures, only some huge marine creatures over 10 meters long, some of which carried extraordinary powers 30,000 meters, 100,000 meters. The ocean was pitch black with no light, and terrifying pressure suppressed everything. Almost nothing. A complex look flashed in Suyun's eyes as he saw a creature several hundred meters tall beside him. It had purple skin, and its mouth had countless sharp teeth along the edges, making it look like an anglerfish. Its appearance was ferocious and ugly. Because of the darkness, the enormous creature remained oblivious, drifting aimlessly in the deep sea. Suyun, realizing something, glanced at the minotaur and the blonde youth on the wooden boat and decided to do something befitting his current status. In the ample air, these people were temporarily safe, but now, unaware of their surroundings, they were filled with tension and fear. Suddenly, Suyun transformed his divine power into a colorless, transparent state. This change went unnoticed by the others on the boat, as everything around them was uniformly dark. But the next second, they couldn't maintain their expressions, because apart from the darkness above, a dim light appeared in all directions, allowing them to see everything nearby. The hundreds of meters long monster fish instantly came into the Minotaur's view. The moment they saw the fish, the incredibly light-sensitive creature immediately spotted them and lunged ferociously. The seawater surged. Piercing screams erupted one after another, the Minotaur and the blonde youth turning pale. Some fainted from fright, while others wet themselves in fear. Suyun continued descending, helping them escape the fish's jaws at the last moment. 500,000 meters. Upon reaching this point, Suyun discovered several gigantic creatures, each 1,000 meters long, radiating powerful auras. The closest one, in particular, had a humanoid appearance, 2 arms and 3 legs, its head covered in horns, and its face a gaping maw filled with sharp teeth. It moved slowly in the deep sea, seemingly searching for something, terrifying the people on the ship. 1,000,000 meters. At this point, Suyun didn't find any creatures. He didn't know if there were none, or if they were simply too rare for him to encounter. He stopped, because he noticed a strange phenomenon. Thank you Dream Poet Wanderer for the 10,000 coin reward. Thank you Black Cat in the Rain for the 1,000 coin reward. Thank you Wu Yu Qing Luo for the 588 coin reward. Thank you everyone for your rewards. Greek letter Omega, this is considered an extra chapter. Chapter 455 The Other Side of the World. Ahead, the water calmed, forming a tranquil zone. A hint of doubt flashed in Suyun's eyes. Then, as he attempted to cross this zone with his wooden boat, he encountered an obstacle. A powerful restriction prevented him from crossing. No, or rather, it only restricted him. The wooden boat passed through unscathed, much to his astonishment. This is the aura of rules, somewhat like a special barrier, Suyun mused. After observing it, he realized this didn't seem to be set up by a deity, but rather a natural barrier to prevent things like extraordinary beings from passing through. Suyun, unconvinced, immediately released the aura of rules, attempting to use them to pass through. To his surprise, this time he encountered no resistance whatsoever and successfully reached the calm waters. Does the rule actually hinder me? After pondering for a while, Suyun couldn't discern anything else and had to give up, continuing onward. However, as he looked at the blonde youth on the wooden boat, a guess formed in his mind. How did this guy manage to reach such a powerful shipwreck on the other side and cross such deep waters? Suyun suspected that this guy might be a pawn used by someone to investigate the other side. He even deduced his strength. A true god was absolutely impossible, because probably nothing could hinder a true god. According to his speculation, it was probably an existence without rules that discovered this strange place, but couldn't overcome the barrier, so it sent a mortal to the other side. Perhaps this blonde youth also possessed some kind of surveillance method. Thinking this, Suyun carefully scanned the blonde youth with his mental power. A few seconds later, his expression hardened. On the back of the youth's left hand, he discovered something emitting mental energy fluctuations. Intrigued, he struck it with his mental power. In just one strike, the mark-like thing collapsed, and then a phantom floated out from that place. Its appearance was very similar to the spirit of Aladdin's lamp, but its face was somewhat strange, covered with blue fish scales, and it had a mouth full of sharp teeth. This scene terrified the trembling minotaurs on the ship, while the blonde youth screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The sudden appearance of such a bizarre thing on his body was enough to make him faint. "Who is it?" the phantom shouted as soon as it appeared. It then looked around and found itself on a wooden boat in a dimly lit sea. In an instant, it recognized its location, the Forbidden Sea. Strange, there's light here. Just as it was wondering, it noticed something on the ship's roof, guided by the strange light. The next moment, its eyes widened. A vast darkness enveloped the sea, and something seemed to be writhing within it. "What is this?" it cried out in alarm. At that moment, a powerful aura of law descended. The void distorted, and the terrifying pressure rendered the figure completely immobile. "God! God!" the phantom cried out in terror. "Spare me!" Before it could even beg for mercy, a deep darkness enveloped it, followed by a colorless wave that swept across it, and its expression froze. His body turned to ashes and scattered, then the ashes dissipated into nothingness. This scene terrified the people on the ship, their eyes filled with horror. This was the power of an evil god. Ignoring the terrified and speculative people on the ship, Suyun withdrew his gaze from the ship. So it was just a supernatural being. He didn't sense the aura of any other gods. After eliminating the phantom, he didn't pay it any mind and continued on his way. In any case, this strange guy's plan had failed. At the same time the phantom disappeared, a loud roar came from somewhere in the deep sea. The voice seemed to contain resentment, yet also a hint of fear. In the quiet sea, due to its peculiar nature, not a single creature was seen along the way. This stretch of sea was short. Suyun only traveled a few thousand meters before it ended. After casually creating a small black sphere coordinate, he passed through the barrier. As soon as he reached the other side of the sea, an immense pressure pressed down, seawater slowly surging down from above. Su-yoon sensed something was wrong. Gravity had reversed. This strange scene startled him, confirming that another side of the world must exist, otherwise such a strange phenomenon wouldn't occur. Withstanding the pressure, Su-yoon rose from the deep sea towards the surface. 1,000,000 meters, 500,000 meters, 100,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 1,000 meters. The pressure from the sea was negligible, and at the same time, a large number of marine creatures appeared in his vision. 100 meters, sunlight shone down from the sea surface. Boom! A deafening splash resounded as a massive darkness, carrying the wooden boat, leaped to the surface. Glancing at the waterfall at the end of the sea below, Su-yoon began to examine this other half of the world. There really is one. Su-yoon was curious, wondering what the situation was like here. With a movement, the darkness moved rapidly, like a black curtain appearing in the sky, and the curtain was still moving quickly, a terrifying scene. Some marine creatures fled in terror. Before long, Su-yoon saw the coastline in the distance. His eyes suddenly narrowed as he noticed some buildings on the shore. These buildings, a gentle breeze caressed his face, and the morning sun shone down. Along the coast, a large number of people were busy. "Mary, are you going fishing?" A tall, burly, blonde-haired, blue-eyed middle-aged man with thick hair and deep-set features asked a teenage girl. The girl, Mary, carrying a white fishing net and some other items, smiled and said as she walked, "Yes, my father hasn't been feeling well lately." The middle-aged man, Daniel, suddenly remembered that Mary's father had almost not returned from a shipwreck during his last voyage. "Mary, I think you should go to church and pray, Uncle Daniel. You know I have no interest in that mystical stuff," Mary politely declined. She not only didn't believe in any mystical powers, but also felt an intense aversion to churches. Having once inadvertently witnessed a clergyman's filthy and obscene act, she felt utterly disgusted. That damned clergyman, molesting a boy. If it weren't for Uncle Daniel in front of her, she definitely wouldn't have bothered with him. "All right," Daniel sighed, "may the goddess of harvest bless you." "Thank you." Mary accepted the offer and was about to say goodbye with a smile. Just then, before the people on the shore could react, the sky changed. Darkness gradually enveloped the earth, and the sunlight was blocked. What happened? Why did the weather suddenly change like this? Chapter 456 The Kingdom of the Lion. Hundreds of fishermen on the shore, and people in the villages that depend on the sea for their livelihood, instinctively looked up, and then they were stunned. The sky had been covered by darkness, and a massive, writhing shadow with an accent shivers down everyone's spines. Ah! Screams rang out, and the crowd erupted into chaos like ants on a hot plate. A terrifying aura wafted across the land, making every living thing tremble and silencing the world. The immense difference in their life levels made them instinctively realize how high and noble the being in the darkness was. Like ants before heaven and earth, they were left only with trembling. On the shore, a young girl named Melly collapsed on the sand, staring at the sky in terror. This horrifying scene shattered her long-held beliefs, leaving her in disbelief. Then, a terrified voice sounded beside her. Upon closer listening, it was Uncle Daniel. "It's evil. Goddess of harvest. Banish it," the tall Daniel murmured in a trembling voice. High in the air, looking down at the panicked crowd, Su-yoon wasn't surprised, nor did he try to hide it. Wasn't this what he wanted? However, the civilization here seemed quite advanced. Of course, to truly witness the level of civilization here, he needed to go to larger places. This village hadn't provided him with much information. Thinking this, Su-yoon glanced at the wooden boat in his hand and suddenly flung it onto the beach. Boom! A large amount of sand splashed up, the sand trembled, and the several-meter-long wooden boat became stuck in the sand, leaving the people on board dizzy and disoriented. Su-yoon took one last look at the wooden boat, then turned and left. What would happen to these people was none of his concern. Hadn't he fulfilled their wishes? Inexhaustible wealth and endless food, Su-yoon thought with amusement. Some people actually believe that. The massive black shadow quickly disappeared, like an illusion, coming and going in a flash. He was going to investigate this world. However, his disappearance didn't erase the impact. The crowd below remained in a state of panic for a long time. Of course, besides the panicked crowd, there were also other unusual individuals. In a secluded corner of the village, outside the door of a small wooden hut, stood an old man with greasy, disheveled hair, tattered clothes, and a seemingly insane appearance. He held a glass bottle filled with bubbling, dark green liquid. However, He was no longer concerned with his research findings. He was now staring intently at the sky, gazing at the disappearing darkness. Even after the noble presence vanished, he couldn't tear his eyes away. So beautiful, so perfect, this is what I've been searching for, he murmured frantically. Noble being, grant me your power, the old man cried out, his eyes filled with longing. On the beach, several hundred people, including Mary and Daniel, watched the wooden boat with fear. What's on that boat? Fear prevented them from approaching. Just as they hesitated, a commotion arose from the boat, and figures came into view. Monsters. When the minotaurs appeared, the villagers, who had never seen such creatures before, were utterly terrified. With a loud crash, a large group of people scattered, leaving only a dozen or so whose legs were too weak to move. Haha, I'm back. I'm back, the blond youth Frey shouted excitedly. He recognized the familiar people and their worn-out clothes, even though they were old and outdated, and knew where he was. He was definitely back, that being had brought him back. He was thrilled. Seeing his condition, the Minotaur Big, asked suspiciously, "Kid, where's this place?" Frey, in his excitement, blurted out without thinking, "This is the place I told you about." As soon as he finished speaking, Minotaur Big and the others glanced at their surroundings and at the remaining weak-legged people, their faces immediately darkening. Damn it, Minotaur Big suddenly grabbed Frey's collar, roaring, "This is the place you said had lots of wealth and endless food, let go." Frey's eyes widened in terror, and he could barely breathe. Only then did he remember that he had lied to these people to get them to take him to the end of the sea. Thinking about it, he suddenly felt a pang of regret, annoyed at his quick tongue. Otherwise, he could have continued to deceive them. But there was no time to think too much now. Facing the enraged Bull Demon King and the other Minotaurs, he could only say, "I'm a nobleman." Fearing they wouldn't understand, he explained, "A person of high status. I can bring you food and wealth." Bull Demon King understood, his raised fist paused, he hesitated for a moment, and said hatefully, "I hope you're right, otherwise you won't have an easy time. We won't let you go." He released Frey's clothes, letting the other man breathe a sigh of relief. "Don't worry." After a brief discussion, they lowered the gangway and disembarked one after another. Ah, the feeling of being alive. Frey inhaled the sweet air, his face full of relief. Recalling his previous experience in the deep sea, he trembled. Those sea monsters. He shuddered, thankful that some being had taken pity on them and brought them here, otherwise, he thought he would never have crossed that deep sea. Those monsters, just thinking about them was terrifying. Frey glanced at the beach, now deserted, where they had been chatting, and suggested, "There's a village here, let's go in and gather some supplies." Niuda nodded. Just as they were heading towards the village, a series of footsteps sounded at the entrance. More than 100 villagers, armed with machetes and other weapons, rushed out, glaring fiercely at them. "Monsters, get out. Don't come in," the villagers shouted. Frey and the others were startled. Faced with their attempts to drive them away, Frey quickly stepped forward, first bowing, before speaking, "I am a nobleman from the Lion Kingdom, and I came to your village to replenish my supplies." Nobleman. The tall, burly villagers were startled by the word. In an instant, fearful gazes turned to the blond youth. However, at this moment, a dignified old man roared, "Don't be fooled by them. Look at those monsters. They're definitely lying to us. Once we get into the village, they'll definitely eat us." Instantly, remembering the terrifying scene from before, people's fierce gazes turned back to Frey and his group. Leave. Amidst the fervor of the crowd, Frey had no choice but to pull the angry Niuda and the others away. "Stop, what do you intend to do to the divine messengers?" "Thanks to for the 7,500 coin reward. Thanks to for the 500 coin reward. Thanks to for the 588 coin reward. Thank you." Chapter 457 The Dark Church. Divine messengers were startled, instinctively looking in the direction of the voice. The voice came from an old man with disheveled hair, tattered clothes, and an extremely shabby appearance. "It's you, you old madman." Before Frey and the others could even ask a question, the crowd erupted in anger. Frey and the others exchanged glances, unsure of what these people meant. Almost everyone in the village knew this old madman. He was an old man who hid in his house, conducting cruel experiments. People often saw him dissecting animals, the process bloody and gruesome, and he would concoct all sorts of bizarre and strange things from various herbs, their purpose unknown. Because of his bizarre behavior, he was not only hated and ostracized, but some even said he was insane. HMPH, the shabby old man sneered, saying, "You lot are truly foolish, daring to offend the divine messenger. What do you mean?" The villagers could no longer tolerate such insults and glared angrily. "What do you mean? Can't you see these people were sent by the gods?" the old man said calmly. "Don't you think about what will happen if you offend a god?" God? The people recalled the scene from before and shuddered. That feeling. They had almost no doubt that it was a god, but gods are not all the same, and if it was a god, it was definitely an evil god. And the messenger of an evil god. No wonder they looked like that. For a moment, they were both shocked and afraid, and they all took a step back, moving further away from the monsters in front of them. They could no longer say what they had said before, because they were afraid of divine punishment. Who knew if they would be cursed by an evil god if they offended these monsters? "What do you want to do?" a dignified old man in the crowd asked. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone, including Frey and the others, looked at this crazy old man. "What do I want to do?" The slovenly old man revealed a smile that looked extremely eerie. "Of course, I want to compile a scripture, to make the ignorant people believe in my Lord." "To please my Lord?" the old man shouted madly. "You're crazy." The crowd panicked, fear flashing in their eyes. Believing in an evil god, this old guy is truly a madman. The slovenly old man ignored them, focusing his gaze on the stunned Frey and the Minotaurs, coaxing them, "Come, join me, as the Lord's messengers, let's please the Lord together. The Lord will grant us power." Recalling the power of that being, only Frey and the others who had personally encountered it knew how terrifying it was. Their hearts trembled, and they had to admit that the old man's words were full of power. At this moment, unbeknownst to the world, a fearsome church was about to be born. "Pancakes, delicious pancakes, sir, would you like one?" The cries of vendors filled the bustling street, where people came and went. Suyun, disguised in appearance and clothing, walked slowly. He wore a black hat, a sut-like garment, and carried a cane. His very presence commanded respect. Just standing there, he inspired a sense of dread. This must be a noble gentleman. A little flower vendor secretly glanced at the handsome young man. Not only the little boy, but the handsome, tall young man walked as if he were the center of the world, attracting glances from everyone who saw him. Especially some wealthy ladies carrying folding fans, their eyes gleaming as they stared at him, wishing his clothes would disappear. This gentleman must be very rich. The ladies secretly admired the long cane in the young man's hand, marveling at the large emerald at the top. Handsome and wealthy, he naturally attracted many ladies, but for some reason, a sense of timidity arose as they approached, causing them to hesitate. Suyun listened to the lively sounds around him, walking calmly and observing quietly. At this moment, a loud shout came from ahead. "Ladies and gentlemen, look over here." Suyun looked over and saw a young man dressed in a black tuxedo, holding a top hat and a cane. Noticing the people looking over, the young man pointed his cane into the hat, and immediately a flock of white doves flew out, eliciting gasps of surprise. Then came a bouquet of red flowers. The young man tossed them into the air, sending the blossoms fluttering everywhere. "Oh my God!" exclaimed the people in surprise. Suyun smiled slightly and stepped away. Just then, a whistle sounded in the distance, followed by a rumbling sound. Suyun turned to look. A steam train, billowing white smoke, rumbled towards them, its whistle blaring. Suyun seemed thoughtful. During this time, he had roughly observed the level of civilization here. It was filled with steam and mechanical creations, roughly similar to a medieval civilization. He had also basically figured out the power dynamics. He was currently standing in a territory called the Thorn Kingdom, surrounded by other kingdoms. Besides the kingdoms, the most important power was the church. There are very few gods here, Suyun mused. Unlike the other side, which was wildly developed and full of various gods, this continent had very few gods. Faith was basically divided among 3 Orthodox churches and other churches. Thinking of those 3 Orthodox churches, a hint of apprehension flashed in Suyun's eyes. They are the Lord of the Sky, the Mother of the Earth, and the Ouroboros of Time. No one understands better than him what these 3 authorities mean. Each one is more terrifying than the last. And it's almost certain that they are true gods. Of course, besides bad news, there's also good news. Although these 3 beings are powerful, their existence is too ethereal. Even the church is a human construct. They don't care about so-called faith and have almost never appeared. For a long time, these 3 beings have been essentially invisible. If it weren't for a faith in each other and the ability to sense their power, people would think they were just legends. Even when the gods of this continent waged war, these three never intervened. Suyun guessed that these three beings were most likely asleep, or restricted by something, or perhaps they had simply left this world. Besides these three ethereal beings, the gods of the other churches, although not true gods, have even greater power and influence. The god of machinery, the goddess of harvest, the god of justice, the goddess of wealth, and the god of contracts. These five wield immense influence on this continent, boasting a vast number of followers. Besides the gods, the power system on this continent is also quite interesting, with some so-called professionals advancing through exotic beast materials or magical potions. Chapter 458 Gamma Ray Burst Character Formation. Even some professions involve borrowing divine power, somewhat like divine warriors but not quite. As Suyun pondered, a timid voice sounded beside him. "Sir, would you like a scallion pancake?" A 15-year-old blond boy with freckles on his face looked fearfully at the nobleman standing before his scallion pancake cart. Suyun glanced at him and realized that his presence seemed to be hindering the boy's business. People who had intended to buy scallion pancakes were all intimidated by his aura and dared not approach. Suyun smiled slightly, then one, "Please, what did you say?" the scallion pancake boy exclaimed in surprise. He had only asked casually and never expected this nobleman to buy. In the eyes of noblemen, his food represented lowliness and was something they would never buy. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he hurriedly began making the scallion pancake. On the gleaming silver plate, white batter and various ingredients were placed one by one, and a fragrant aroma immediately wafted out. Before long, the golden and crispy scallion pancake was ready. Suyun took his things and left, continuing to ponder the matter, while behind him, a young man bowed respectfully. "Should I play the role in this world?" He took a bite of the crispy scallion pancake, a look of hesitation on his face. The other gods were alright, but the three unknown true gods filled him with apprehension. These three not only wielded immense power but were also true gods themselves. It was obvious he couldn't defeat them. It was a question of whether he could escape. After thinking for a long time, he made a decision. Perhaps playing the role here is a more correct choice, compared to the unknown on the other side of this other world, where the number of true gods was unknown, and even their authority was unknown. This side was much more transparent. He didn't believe that the number of true gods on the other side of this other world was less than here. Choosing this continent to play the role meant at least the true gods knew some of the basics, while on the other side he would face unknown attacks. Suddenly, Suyun thought of a problem, stopped in his tracks, and his expression changed. Does the Dark Authority have a master? He had been neglecting this most important question. If he succeeded in his role, but the Dark Authority already had a master, wouldn't he have wasted his time and become the real clown? After a moment's thought, Suyun quickly came up with a way to test it. The next second, a colorless radiance bloomed on his body. Complex and profound power descended with a roar. Blessing spell, enhanced luck. Suyun held a round gold coin in his hand, flicked it with his thumb, and the coin was tossed into the air, spinning and dancing. Fate, tell me the answer. Heads? No. Tails? Yes. The coin flashed a dazzling light under the sunlight. The aura of complex power quickly permeated the coin. Finally, the dazzling coin landed in his palm. Suyun looked closely, and the facets on his palm made the corners of his mouth turn up slightly. Heads. Let's try again, just in case. He tossed it 5 more times. As expected, the coins landed heads every time. With luck almost comparable to that of the chosen one of the world, he couldn't believe that 6 times was just a coincidence. The answer was obvious. Suyun was in a good mood. Perhaps it was fate's favor, but at this moment, a power within him surged. Gamma Ray Burst Character. Suyun clearly felt the character's completion. In just a moment, his initial hesitation vanished, replaced by unwavering resolve. With a Gamma Ray Burst character, he felt much more confident, even facing a potential true god. Now that he was ready, Suyun had no intention of delaying and immediately prepared to act. Wait, suddenly, a shout came from behind, causing him to pause and frown. He turned around and looked at the figure. He saw a fat clergyman in religious robes, accompanied by 3 burly men in armor resembling knights, approaching. "Sir, I am the pastor of the Harvest Church." The portly pastor introduced himself with a smile as soon as he arrived, then stated his purpose. "Would you be interested in attending our church service?" Suyun's brows furrowed even more. He noticed the man's eyes glancing at him and his cane, a glint of hidden greed in them. Buck's gaze swept over the unfamiliar gentleman, his desire burning even brighter. From the moment he saw the young man tossing gold coins, he was captivated by the young man, or rather, by his wealth. He was stunned by what he saw, not only the emeralds inlaid in his cane, but the various embellishments on his black clothes were almost blinding. He had only one thought in his mind: he had to persuade this man to go to the church. After all, he'd have to donate some money to God, and if he became a believer in the goddess of harvest, he'd be rolling in money. So, he immediately stopped the young man. "No interest, move aside," Su-Yun said coldly. With that, he turned to leave. Buck was stunned, unable to believe what he had heard. Someone dared to treat him, the pastor of the Harvest Church, like that. What an insolent person. The onlookers were also shocked. Some of the envious and jealous members of the church even gleamed with schadenfreude. "How dare you?" Three knights noticed Pastor Buck's darkening face and immediately shouted, blocking the young man's path. Buck's face was grim. He was about to reprimand someone when he suddenly saw impatience flash across the handsome young man's face. An invisible burst of spiritual power erupted, dust billowing up. "Ah!" Three burly figures screamed and flew backward. Exclamations of shock came from the surrounding men and women. They couldn't believe someone dared to beat a clergyman in the street. A professional. Buck's face darkened, staring intently at the departing young man. Fear and anger flashed in his eyes. No wonder he was so arrogant. "Offending my Harvest Church, even a professional won't get away unscathed," he gritted his teeth. He'd seen this kind of arrogant person before, someone who got a little skill and then became overbearing, but they usually didn't end up well. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. Having gotten rid of the troublesome fellow, Su-Yun walked along the medieval-style street, then silently turned and headed towards a secluded alley, a place almost no nobles would frequent. Once no one was around, he cast an invisibility spell on himself, and then his figure floated up, soaring into the sky like lightning. 1,000,000 meters, 5,000,000 meters, 10,000,000 meters. Reaching the edge of the world once more, Su-Yun didn't stop, continuing his ascent. After breaking through a barrier, he arrived in the starry sky, where multicolored starlight scattered everywhere. Su-Yun's gaze fell upon the distant sun. Even on his second viewing, he was still somewhat awestruck by this sun. The folds of space-time swirled around it, and vast amounts of energy were constantly being released. Chapter 459 Heavenly Change. Judging by its appearance alone, Su-Yun had no doubt about the sun's power. He flew towards it. As he drew closer, the resistance increased dramatically as he approached the space-time fold surrounding the sun, preventing him from getting any closer. Su-Yun hesitated, then stopped in front of the space-time folds. He began to act. If only he could block the sun's light. In the Lion Kingdom, the Thorn Kingdom, or any other kingdom, people live their busy, repetitive lives, expecting today to be another normal day. However, reality shattered their illusions. In the village of Stoffen, a large group of people were gathered, and arguments could be heard. Daniel, a tall, burly middle-aged man with thick hair and deep-set features, glared angrily at those spreading their faith in the village. "Get out of our village, you evil believers. The Harvest Goddess Church will destroy you. Daniel, your God won't protect you, because he has too many followers. He won't pay attention to a weakling like you," the old madman Sora coaxed patiently. "Come, believe in my Lord, and join us in embracing the darkness. We will be noticed by the great God, and he will grant us strength." Daniel sneered. "Evil fellow, your God will one day be destroyed by the Harvest Goddess." The other onlookers all nodded in agreement. The old madman Sora angrily rebuked, "Ignorant. Those who cannot experience the power of darkness, you will regret it, is that so? Then let us experience it," the burly Daniel scoffed. Frey and the others nearby glared angrily. Just as the atmosphere became tense, a sudden change occurred. The sky slowly darkened without anyone noticing. What's going on? Faced with the inexplicably darkening sky, people felt very strange and subconsciously looked up at the sky. Ah! What's that? Whether it was Daniel and the other people, or the old madman Sora and his group, everyone was stunned. At that moment, exclamations of alarm echoed across the continent, everyone startled by the strange phenomenon in the sky. A golden sun, now high in the sky, was now edged with black. It was as if a part of the sun had been bitten off and vanished. Thinking they were seeing things, the crowd rubbed their eyes, trying to confirm it wasn't a hallucination. But the black edge didn't disappear, it spread rapidly. The edge grew larger, the sun smaller, and the sky darkened quickly. Finally, the sun completely disappeared from the sky, swallowed by inexplicable darkness. The world went black. It was daytime, yet now it was pitch black. Screams rang out. Amidst fear, people frantically speculated. What's happening? Divine punishment. Why did the sun disappear? Believers prayed frantically. Great goddess of harvest, drive away the darkness. God of contracts, help your believers. Wealth. One by one, believers hurriedly prayed to their respective deities, their prayers all similar, to drive away the darkness. A vast power of faith surged across the continent, and countless great beings looked up at the dark sky. In the village of Stoffen, Daniel and the other villagers were filled with unease. Just as the entire continent was in a state of panic, unsure of what was happening, a mysterious voice echoed from the heavens. I am the ruler of darkness, the Lord of darkness. Sincerely recite my name, and you will gain my power. The mysterious and vast voice slowly reverberated across the entire continent, allowing every terrified person to hear it clearly. The ruler of darkness. The people were stunned, then their expressions changed drastically as they realized something. Could this be the work of this God, the being who brought darkness, the Lord of darkness? At this moment, everyone deeply remembered this God. Because they couldn't help but remember it, to plunge the world into darkness. What kind of power was this? In the village of Stoffen, Daniel and the others' expressions changed drastically as they realized something. The old madman Sora suddenly laughed maniacally. Do you see this? This is the power of my Lord, even the light has submitted at the feet of my Lord. The laughter echoed, making every villager even more uneasy. The burly Daniel was filled with fear, remembering his earlier words. No, he stammered, the goddess of harvest will, but before he could finish, a scene unfolding in the sky stopped him in his tracks. Not only him, but others noticed the strange phenomenon, their eyes widening in shock. Other gods had descended. Various colored lights appeared across the continent, powerful auras spreading outwards. Then, the light shot into the sky. Upon closer inspection, within that light were magnificent beings. A mechanical god clad in silver robes, with a full brown beard. A beautiful goddess of harvest adorned with various plants. A goddess of wealth, radiating an aura of money. A god of justice, tall and imposing in white robes, with a dignified and righteous appearance. A god of contracts, clutching a parchment, frowning. The 5 gods of the continent. Besides them, the other 8 gods possessed much weaker auras. At this moment when these dark gods had plunged the world into darkness, whether responding to the prayers of believers or plotting to exploit faith, all of this caused them to reveal themselves at this moment. Meanwhile, beings in the shadows were also watching intently. The 5 gods gathered together, conversing as they soared into the sky. An angry female voice rang out. This Lord of Darkness is incredibly audacious, daring to do such a thing. The goddess of harvest sneered. How foolish. Daring to offend all of us gods, he doesn't take us seriously. Who gave him the audacity? The other 4 gods nodded, all agreeing that this wielder of dark power was far too arrogant. What gave him the confidence to disregard all the gods like this? Then let's teach him a lesson, the god of machinery said calmly. The gods agreed. They were confident and didn't believe they would lose. As the 5 top gods of the continent, they were incredibly confident in their strength. As they increased in altitude, the culprit of darkness seemed to have noticed them, suddenly appearing 1,000 meters above them. A ripple spread through space, followed by a massive mass of darkness descending. It was a colossal mass of darkness, within which shadows seemed to writhe. This scene caused the 5 gods' expressions to change slightly. The spatial artifact, and its appearance, both this spatial artifact and the vast darkness gave them a powerful feeling, and they immediately became somewhat cautious. A moment of silence fell over the scene. The 5 gods exchanged glances, and finally, the goddess of harvest spoke. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 460 Battle. A moment of silence fell over the scene. The 5 gods exchanged glances, and finally, the goddess of harvest spoke. The deity who wields the power of darkness, she introduced herself, then coldly declared, "You'd better withdraw your darkness." The confidence and arrogance she possessed as one of the 5 continental gods meant she wasn't afraid of this Lord of Darkness. Besides, Could this guy possibly defeat all 5 of them? Therefore, her tone unconsciously carried a commanding tone. In fact, to gather faith, she deliberately amplified her voice throughout the entire continent. After all, how could mortals have faith if they couldn't hear her? Sure enough, exclamations of surprise rang out across the continent, and mortals' eyes shone with worship and hope. In the village of Stoffen, Daniel and the other people were filled with excitement. The goddess of harvest. They heard the goddess's voice. The goddess was still rebuking the Lord of Darkness for their sake, ordering him to withdraw the darkness. Believers throughout the continent showed their admiration. High in the sky, the goddess of harvest's face lit up with a slight smile, sensing the increased faith. The 4 gods beside her secretly regretted their actions. The goddess of harvest decided to press on and was about to say something more. However, her only response was a cold voice from the darkness. Get out! That single word echoed across the entire continent, reverberating through the void. Everyone on the continent, whether ordinary people or believers, was stunned. The goddess of harvest turned pale, and the 4 gods looked on in astonishment. The other 8 gods who had just come down from below to watch were also shocked. What had they just heard? A god dared to rebuke the goddess of harvest like that. As one of the 5 gods of the continent, aside from those 3 ethereal beings, no one dared to offend her. Her repeated actions proved just how powerful she was. Those who offended her, whether human or god, aside from the other 4 gods, met their fates. In an instant, the 8 gods' eyes revealed a gloating expression, thinking this Lord of Darkness was in trouble. Sure enough, the next second, the goddess of harvest became enraged, a golden light blooming from her body, seemingly about to unleash a thunderous strike. However, before the goddess of harvest could act, a dark pillar of light appeared first. Golden will technique. The pillar of light, radiating an aura of rules, struck the goddess of harvest's head with lightning speed, in the blink of an eye, before the goddess of harvest's shocked eyes. Boom! Half her head exploded. Ah! The goddess of harvest screamed. The 4 gods beside her were stunned, and the 8 gloating gods widened their eyes. Not only them, but the people of the entire continent were stunned. Because in the sky, a huge luminous projection was shining brightly. Out of kindness, Su Yun used the mirage technique to project the events unfolding here onto the continent, allowing everyone to witness the scene up close. Furthermore, the divine radiance emanating from these deities illuminated the sky, eliminating the need for spotlights. This was actually inspired by the harvest goddess's telepathic message. Since she enjoyed spreading the word so much, let her be the center of attention. The sight of the exploding head stunned all the mortals, causing them to tremble. The goddess was dead. But thankfully, the goddess's exploded head healed, bringing them a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, the goddess was alright. However, even with this relief, people still felt fear towards the power of the Lord of Darkness. It was terrifying, even the goddess almost perished. After using the harvest rules to expel the rules from her head, and relying on the healing power unique to 9th level god, the harvest goddess recovered from her injuries. However, her expression was not good, and a flash of fear crossed her eyes. The aura of rules, and it was intact. The other beings, whether visible or invisible, were also greatly shocked. The aura of rules. This is something only the 5 gods possess. And that's why they are so powerful on the continent. However, now, another thought suddenly occurred to the gods. The world is about to change. Could it be that another god will emerge on the continent, and then there will be 6 gods? Their shock was palpable, and the eyes of the harvest goddess and the others grew serious. At this moment, the harvest goddess laughed angrily. No wonder you dared to do this. The experience of death filled her with resentment. We absolutely cannot let this guy live. The 5 gods exchanged glances, all seeing the killing intent in each other's eyes. The continent only needs the 5 of them. There's no need for another god to share the faith. They didn't believe this guy could take on 5 of them. However, before they could make a move, Su Yun noticed the killing intent in their eyes, even though he was still holding back. The small black sphere opened, unleashing a massive surge of faith power. A colorless blessing spell bloomed upon him, and the ascension bracelet appeared. In an instant, a terrifying aura of rules erupted from him. 1 times. 5 times. 9 times. Wisps of energy dissipated, causing the sky and earth to tremble slightly. Boom. A gale accompanied the distortion of the void. All the gods watching were filled with horror. How could this be? Such a powerful aura. The fact that this Lord of Darkness had comprehended the rules was already enough to shock them, but this aura, nearly 10 times stronger, made them tremble. A strong sense of crisis arose, like alarm bells ringing, reminding them how terrifying and dangerous the owner of this aura was. They would die. Escape. At this moment, whether it was the 8 gods or the 5 gods, the thought of retreat arose in their hearts, and their subconscious desire to flee arose. Before they could even act, the being in the darkness swiftly struck. Eternal night. An incomparably profound darkness instantly enveloped the entire sky. Even though the sky was dim, there was still light, but this darkness was different. It was absolute blackness, with not a single ray of light remaining beneath its cover. Simultaneously, a colorless radiance shone upon them before any of the gods could react. The gods, who had just retreated, instinctively looked down, their eyes filled with terror. What is this? Wisps of gray dust appeared on their bodies, then gradually vanished. Their divine bodies were disappearing. Before the 8 onlookers could react, most of their divine bodies dissipated. With screams, they turned to ashes and perished. Besides the 8 gods who died tragically, the other 5 gods fared no better, at best slightly better. The aura of the 5 rules emanated from them, and they desperately resisted, trying to dispel this deadly divine art. Unfortunately, with a power difference of more than 9 times, their rules were stretched thin and simply could not resist. Chapter 461 The Fall of a God. The goddess of harvest was filled with terror, the god of machinery could no longer maintain his composure, and the other 3 also looked extremely grim. In their current state, if they didn't take other action, they would surely die. Under these circumstances, the 5 gods reacted differently, each hastily employing their own methods. The god of machinery, clad in a silver robe, suddenly changed color, transforming into a silver mechanical body. Then, a small silver object detached from the mechanical body and quickly transformed into another mechanical divine body. As for the original body, it seemed to have lost its spirit, its eyes lifeless, and the suppressed, strange injuries erupted, instantly engulfing it and turning it into dust. And, suddenly, the god of machinery's eyes widened in fear at the dust appearing on the new body. Fortunately, however, he noticed something different. The strange power had weakened. Overjoyed, he quickly created even more new bodies. While he was trying to save himself, the other 4 gods also made various moves. The plants adorning the goddess of harvest suddenly sprouted fruit, which then ripened and detached. With each detached fruit, her eerie power diminished. The god of contracts was even stranger, seemingly without doing anything, his eternal night magic inexplicably weakened. Of course, if one ignored the screams of believers echoing across the continent, it would be perfect. He forcibly signed contracts with believers, transferring his injuries. The goddess of wealth had a similar method, continuously scattering handfuls of gold coins and crystals of faith, their dazzling light flashing in the air. Then, the wealth mysteriously dissipated, and her injuries healed a fraction. There's nothing wealth can't solve. If there's, it's because you're not wealthy enough. A real-life version of wealth can move mountains. The god of justice's face darkened, and suddenly a circular object appeared in his hand. A strange power of rules erupted. This power not only attracted the attention of the gods, but even Su Yun, who was preparing to continue his attack, stopped, his brows furrowing. The god of justice's half-destroyed body halted its destruction, as if frozen in that very second. Time began to flow backward. With each second of reversal, his injuries healed a little more. Under this power, all the gods felt a sense of insignificance, as if facing a vast world, feeling powerless. The 4 gods exclaimed. The power of time. In their shock, they realized something. The Ouroboros of time. Their eyes narrowed, and they looked at the ring with suspicion. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a ring at all, but clearly a snake with its head and tail interlocked. We've long heard that the god of justice is connected to the Ouroboros of time, and it's actually true. In their surprise, they suddenly saw that the ring in the god of justice's hand, as his injuries reversed, actually transformed into a wisp of time and dissipated. A look of pain flashed across the god of justice's face. However, the 5 gods didn't have time to think further, their spells only lasted a few seconds. After recovering their injuries, they prepared to continue their escape. As if by telepathy, they transformed into 5 streaks of light and fled in different directions. The mortals, who had been expecting the 5 gods to expel the evil god, were filled with disbelief. They couldn't believe that the 5 great gods would actually run away. In an instant, The five gods' once incomparably powerful reputation plummeted to rock bottom. And for the Lord of Darkness in the sky, the mortals felt even more fear. Just how powerful must he be to make the five gods retreat in unison? After this incident, the five gods suffered a huge loss. Not only did they fail to achieve their goal of plundering faith, but they also lost a portion of their followers. Suyun glanced at the fleeing five gods, frowned, looked at the retreating figure of the god of justice, and then fixed his gaze on the goddess of harvest. As expected of the five gods, their methods of self-preservation are truly astonishing. However, they think they can just run away like that? They're being too naive. Did he really think this was a tourist attraction where people could come and go as they pleased? Even if he couldn't keep them all, keeping one or two was certainly within his grasp. This harvest goddess, not only did her followers leave a bad impression, but her previous remarks also made him uncomfortable, making her his primary target. HMPH, a cold snort echoed through the heavens and earth. A special ripple appeared, and the vast darkness vanished into the air. The harvest goddess sensed the Dark Lord still lingering in place, and a flicker of joy flashed in her eyes. However, that joy quickly turned into hatred. Dark Lord, thinking of the previous life or death crisis and feeling the dwindling faith, he was filled with unbearable hatred. Where did this guy come from? He deserves to die. Just as he was cursing viciously, a spatial ripple suddenly appeared in front of her escape light. What? The harvest goddess realized something, and her face showed horror. Sure enough, the next second, an overwhelming darkness appeared. She moved, trying to retreat and escape. Suyun, having revealed himself, naturally wouldn't let her escape so easily. With a power difference of more than 9 times, this goddess of harvest would have no advantage in either speed or strength. Eternal Night Technique. Golden Wheel. The sky once again returned to ancient darkness, and black light enveloped the goddess of harvest in the blink of an eye, under her horrified gaze. A burst of rule aura erupted, and the goddess of harvest attempted to resist. Unfortunately, the Eternal Night Technique, amplified by her strength, was simply beyond her ability to resist. In shock and anger, she was struck by the Eternal Night Technique once more, and the subsequent black golden wheels were a death warrant. Unsurprisingly, under Suyun's merciless methods, the goddess of harvest perished. The rule aura dissipated, and at that moment, strange changes occurred simultaneously across the continent. The statues of the goddess of harvest in various churches suddenly developed cracks. At the same time, a sorrowful atmosphere permeated the world, as if heaven and earth themselves were grieving, lamenting the passing of a god embodying the rules. Every mortal who felt sorrow was filled with bitterness, a deep ache, and an urge to weep. Normally, mortals would be bewildered, unaware of what had happened, but at this moment, they knew perfectly well what had transpired. For countless enormous projection screens in the sky faithfully displayed what had occurred. Before their very eyes, they witnessed a goddess of harvest fall at the hands of the Lord of Darkness. In the village of Stoffen, Daniel, who had been earnestly hoping the goddess of harvest would banish the darkness, suddenly collapsed to the ground. God has fallen. How could this be? How could this be? His face was filled with disbelief. No, this must be a dream. How could the goddess of harvest fall? This isn't real. He felt his faith crumble. He refused to accept this fact. Chapter 462 Lord of Darkness. Not far away. Lord, the old madman Sora cried out excitedly, his face contorted with madness, as if he had seen the only truth. This was the power of darkness. Even the 5 gods could only flee, only perish under its shadow. The people of the continent were shocked, and their fear of the Lord of Darkness grew even stronger. If even the 5 gods were powerless, what could possibly stop him now? The 3 great beings, though seemingly ethereal, were merely delusions. Countless experiences had proven that these 3 did not care what happened to mortals, nor what their faith mattered. This was what they needed, not what they needed. How laughable it was for humble and insignificant believers to try to bind a true god with their faith. Suyun gazed at the dissipating goddess of harvest, and suddenly an idea struck him. Darkness engulfed the area where she had vanished, and he collected the items she had left behind. It was a golden item shaped like wheat. Upon inspection, he discovered it was a special item, containing a vast space 1,000 meters wide, piled high with various items, such as faith crystals. Looking at the more than 4,000 level 9 faith crystals, Suyun sighed. I suppose I'm the poorest level 9 rule god in history, without a single level 9 faith crystal. Has anyone ever seen a level 9 rule god as wealthy as the others? Compared to them, he's practically a beggar on the street. After lamenting his poverty, without further inspection, Su-yoon turned his attention to the other four fleeing figures. They really ran fast. In just a short while, the four had vanished without a trace. Su-yoon's lips twitched slightly. The four gods, already hidden, felt the fall of the goddess of harvest, and while their hearts trembled, they couldn't help but feel a sense of shared sorrow. Lord of Darkness, at this moment, this name was deeply etched into their minds, unforgettable. Not only them, but after the five gods became four, the people of the continent would never forget this day. Because on this day, a great god was added. The ruler of darkness, the Lord of Darkness. So powerful that he forced the five gods to flee, even annihilating one of the terrifying beings among them. While filled with fear, some recalled the Lord of Darkness's earlier words, and many more followers appeared on the continent, seeking refuge in his power. Besides fearing his strength, people also used their faith to escape potential danger. Su-yoon floated back to a height of tens of millions of meters, silently sensing the surging power of faith. He thought, it seems I've succeeded in impersonating the Lord of Darkness. Whether I can obtain the authority of darkness depends on whether my predictions were correct. Now it was just a matter of waiting. However, the duration of this darkness. Su-yoon suddenly felt a pang of apprehension, recalling the power of time he had encountered before. Time reversal, the Ouroboros of time. The power of a true god was indeed terrifying. Even a mere wisp of power gave him a sense of awe. That was a fundamental difference. Of course, the authority of the Ouroboros of time was also quite monstrous. Just its display sent chills down Su-yoon's spine, and a series of thoughts flooded his mind. He even suspected that the Ouroboros of time might be able to reverse the timeline of the entire world, or at the very least, rewind the time of a certain god to a weak state. Or even allow the god to return to the past and crush their weaker enemies. No, that's not right. Su-yoon quickly shook his head, feeling that it couldn't be that easy. True gods must have some kind of countermeasure, otherwise, if the Ouroboros of time were truly that powerful, there wouldn't be any other true gods, they would have already ruled the entire world. Su-yoon's eyes flickered, and he immediately deduced some information. Perhaps, true gods are involved with time. After a long while, he shook his head. Regardless, everything would become clear the moment he ascended to the status of a true god. Time passed quickly, and half a day later. After experiencing half a day of darkness, all the mortals in the world were filled with anxiety and fear. What would happen if the world remained in darkness? They were afraid of this. In fact, people didn't even think it was wishful thinking. With the four gods defeated, what could stop the Lord of Darkness? As long as the Lord of Darkness wanted, the world would be forever immersed in darkness, and then all things would die, and everything would become lifeless. Having grasped this point, and with the passage of time and the threat to their lives, the faith in the Lord of Darkness surged at an astonishing rate. People went from initial reluctance to fervent devotion, and even the followers of the four gods began to dwindle. The faith in the goddess of harvest collapsed the fastest. Aside from the devout believers, most of the casual followers betrayed them. In just half a day, it's no exaggeration to say that the Lord of Darkness became the undisputed fifth god, both in terms of the number of followers and his prestige. In fact, in people's hearts, besides the three ethereal true gods, the Lord of Darkness was ranked first. After all, this was a fact witnessed by all, and even the followers of the other four gods couldn't refute it. As time passed, various sacrifices began across the continent, people praying to the Lord of Darkness, hoping to bring light back to the world. In the village of Stoffen, illuminated by countless torches, hundreds of people gathered near an altar, anxiously watching the old madman. Pastor Sora, will God really bring back the light? At this moment, almost everyone in the entire village of Stoffen changed their minds. Because they were more deeply affected than others, having not only witnessed the Lord of Darkness firsthand, but also having Sora, their brainwasher. The old madman Sora spread his hands and shouted, "We must be devout for the Lord to respond." In a corner, the burly man Daniel looked utterly lost, staring blankly at everything before him, as if he were dreaming. Just then, with Sora's shout, a miracle occurred. A ray of golden light descended from the horizon, like the breaking of dawn, causing the mortals on the continent to instinctively shield their eyes. A few seconds later, gasps of astonishment rang out one after another. Gazing at the slowly receding darkness, the mortals were filled with excitement. "Thank you, Lord of Darkness," various excited shouts echoed. As the continent erupted in cheers, no mortal could have imagined that the Lord of Darkness they were thanking was currently making a deal with a mortal. Suyun's face remained calm as he casually produced a large number of gems. The multicolored gems piled up into a small mountain, shimmering with various beautiful lights. Amidst the dazed expression of the mortal before him, Suyun took the deed to a magnificent and expansive manner from his hand, then turned and left, leaving the still shocked man behind. Several tens of minutes later, in the incredibly beautiful manor adorned with flowers, Suyun lay on a deck chair, gazing at the golden sun, and murmured, "Now it's just a matter of waiting." Chapter 463 The Wanted Criminal, Lord of Darkness. The third day. The morning sun cast a golden glow upon the earth. At the quest-handling counter of a bounty hunter's post in the Thorn King, a conversation broke out. "You said you found a wanted man." The kingdom's staff member's sharp eyes scanned the middle-aged man before him. The man was richly dressed, adorned with various exquisite ornaments, clearly wealthy and powerful. Bellum wondered why he was here to hand in a quest. "Yes, that's right, I found that cunning fellow. You must catch him," Julio said excitedly. The young staff member didn't say much, turning to pick up a stack of pictorial wanted posters and placing them in front of Julio. After searching through them, Julio found his target. "It's him," he pointed with his right hand. Bellum looked at it curiously. The painting depicted a handsome, noble young man. Judging by appearance alone, he would never be a wanted criminal. The label below the picture, indicating the Thorn Kingdom's gold coins, revealed its value, 1,000 gold coins. Enough for a commoner family to live comfortably for generations. Bellum recognized the man. "Isn't this the person the Harvest Church wanted a few days ago?" A look of pity appeared in his eyes. "I heard he offended a priest. What bad luck." Even though the Harvest Church was almost finished with the fall of the god, a fallen camel is still bigger than a horse. If other churches didn't intervene, the remaining professionals of the Harvest Church could still help the church struggle for a while. Just like now, issuing a warrant for someone who offended the church was still possible, especially since this warrant had been issued a few days ago. It could be said that the entire kingdom had a warrant for this person. "I know where this person is. Send men with me to arrest him." Seeing the number of gold coins on the picture, Julio's eyes gleamed with even more excitement. As a manor owner, Julio was utterly captivated by the jewels the customer who had purchased the estate possessed. He naturally investigated afterward to find out who this manor owner was and how he could produce so many jewels. Surprisingly, the manor owner was a wanted criminal. In an instant, Julio's greed overwhelmed him. If he reported this man, wouldn't he be able to reclaim the manor and perhaps even his vast fortune? "Mine. All mine." Just thinking about it made his breathing quicken, leading him to this place, and thus, the scene before. "Wait a minute, this target is a professional. I heard he's quite strong, and even defeated 3 knights." Upon hearing this, Julio gasped, shocked. "So he's a professional, no wonder he's so wealthy." Luckily, I didn't act impulsively, he was somewhat relieved. Defeating 3 church knights, even the most ordinary knight, meant considerable strength. A staff member summoned a guard and instructed him to notify some professionals to arrest him. Soon after, a team of 9 burly professionals led Julio away. Under the rising sun, golden sunlight shone on the silver armor, making it gleam dazzlingly. "Captain Ryder, the target seems to be a mentalist. Are we up to it?" a handsome young man asked, a hint of worry on his face. Their team consisted entirely of melee soldiers, the most prevalent class. Against a mentalist, they were sure to be at a disadvantage. If they were unlucky, there might even be casualties. Ryder, a middle-aged man with a full beard, laughed loudly. "Don't worry, we're incredibly lucky this time. The Harvest Church sent a level 4 mentalist. We just need to provide support." Shock flashed in the eyes of all the team members. A level 4 professional was considered a big shot in the city. Using a sledgehammer to crack a nut was unacceptable. But then, a sense of understanding and sympathy washed over them. The Harvest Church was already in decline. Their personal extermination of the wanted criminal was likely a show of force, meant to intimidate others. The thought of reducing this behemoth to death throes filled them with awe. A short while later, the 9 burly professionals and the manor owner Julio spotted 2 church members. One was obese, his features almost obscured by fat, while the other was thin, his face clouded with gloom. After exchanging greetings, the group headed towards their target. The obese buck, accompanying Lord Bruce, was offering flattery while secretly plotting something sinister. "Whoever you are, Offending the Harvest Church will not end well. The thought of that handsome young man already made him uncomfortable, and the church's current predicament only fueled his resentment. Buck knew he was taking his anger out on that person, but he had no intention of correcting his actions. That terrifying being was untouchable. They didn't even dare entertain the thought of offending him. But surely they could offend a mere professional? Buck's expression was cold, his heart filled with disdain. Time passed, and soon they quietly arrived outside a vast and beautiful manor. "Everyone, be careful," Captain Ryder said warily. He then led his men to slowly approach the manor. However, before he could take more than a few steps, Bruce, a level 4 professional from the church, suddenly said, "No need to go. He's not inside." Everyone was startled, their faces showing surprise. "I've investigated," Bruce explained briefly, then said to Ryder, "You should still go and ask around to see if you can find out where he is." Captain Ryder nodded. He knew that mental-type professionals definitely had some special methods and chose to trust them. Not long after, through their search, they successfully learned the whereabouts of the wanted criminal from a young boy. "What a free time. He's even in the shopping district," Buck exclaimed enviously. "A wanted criminal. What gave him the audacity to show up like this, so utterly clueless, or does he think their Harvest Church is doomed?" Thinking this, he gritted his teeth, vowing to make that person regret it. After learning their destination, the group rushed towards the shopping district. 20 minutes later, they spotted their target in a bustling area. Upon seeing him, they noticed he was reading a thick brown book. "Once this guy gets to a secluded spot, Captain Ryder was about to outline a capture plan. Unfortunately, before he could finish, he noticed a startling scene. The handsome young man reading in the distance seemed to sense something and looked in their direction. Chapter 464. He's actually the Lord of Darkness. "We've been spotted," a collective gasp filled the crowd. They'd been discovered so easily. "Disperse the crowd," Ryder ordered through gritted teeth. Since they'd been discovered, there was no other way but to press on, hoping it wouldn't affect civilians. His men reacted quickly, surging towards the handsome young man. Soon, amidst the panicked cries and fleeing footsteps, they surrounded him. "What's going on?" The crowd, having moved a distance, watched with suspicion, believing themselves safe. "I don't know, maybe they're arresting a wanted criminal." A wanted criminal. Upon hearing wanted criminal, the crowd realized, seeing a glimpse of what it might be. They scrutinized the supposed criminal, their eyes widening in disbelief. Could it be a mistake that he's really a wanted criminal? They noticed that the wanted criminal not only didn't look fierce, but was actually very handsome, perfectly fitting human aesthetics. Even his clothes and demeanor made him seem like a noble aristocrat, completely unlike a wanted criminal. They were quite skeptical that this young man was a wanted criminal. Who knows? Maybe it's some kind of dirty conspiracy. In an instant, people couldn't help but imagine a power struggle, their gazes towards the young man filled with pity and regret. It's a pity, this young man's fate will likely be grim. Yes, in their hearts, the young man's fate was already decided. They didn't think that the handsome young man could escape under such circumstances. Soo-yoon glanced at the crowd, then looked at Buck, and said calmly, "It's you." He recognized the man, the Harvest Church pastor who had blocked their path earlier. Soo-yoon's calm expression instantly enraged Buck. This is blatant disregard for them. "Kid, I'm telling you, you're finished," he said hatefully. "You've offended the Harvest Church, you should repent for your sins." Soo-yoon nodded, as if agreeing with him. However, his calm expression showed no remorse, but rather an indifference that seemed to make the so-called Harvest Church unworthy of his attention. Instantly, not only Buck but even Bruce became enraged. What an arrogant scoundrel. Bruce was furious and decided to teach this guy a lesson he would never forget. He raised his right hand and pointed, shouting, "Mental impact!" Whoosh! A surge of condensed, semi-transparent mental energy erupted, heading straight for the target. "Here it comes." Buck and the others were all invigorated, their eyes filled with anticipation. How strong must a level 4 professional be? They stared curiously. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew by, and the mental impact hit its target without incident. Buck's eyes lit up with excitement, already anticipating the handsome young man's pained expression. However, after a long while, a questioning voice rang out. "What are you doing?" Soo-yoon felt bewildered. "Is he crazy?" "What? Impossible," Bruce exclaimed. The mental attack had failed. "I don't believe it," he roared and continued casting, "Mental attack, mental attack, mental attack." After 3 consecutive attacks, Nothing happened except for the wind caused by the mental attack. The handsome young man looked at him with disbelief. Bruce, Buck, and the others were all filled with astonishment and shock. How could this happen? Mental immunity. Bruce's expression changed, and he had to come to this impossible conclusion. After a long while, he suppressed his unease and sneered. Don't think you can be arrogant just because you used some trick to become immune to my mental attacks. In his opinion, this person must have some magical item to cause such a strange scene. I have more than one trick. He attacked again. A black arrow with a hint of green, exuding a powerful aura, shot straight towards Su-Yun's head. Sensing the powerful aura of the arrow, those around were terrified. Buck was filled with excitement. This man was doomed. The black-green arrow was aimed precisely at the young man's left eye, and a bloody scene seemed imminent. The arrow was a meter, half a meter, 10 centimeters away from the eye. In the split second before it pierced the eye, time seemed to slow down. Then, Buck and the others gasped. As the arrow approached the eye, it shattered and vanished. Everyone turned pale, incredulous. At this moment, Su-Yun's cold gaze swept over. That gaze. Just as their hearts were filled with fear, a terrifying change occurred. A massive darkness enveloped the handsome young man, and the sky darkened. Space distorted, and a suffocating pressure enveloped the entire city in an instant. Buck and the others who were nearby screamed, their bodies collapsing to their knees, then being pressed to the ground, unable to move an inch. What happened? The large crowd of onlookers in the distance also cried out in alarm, collapsing to the ground. At this moment, however, no one paid any attention. Their eyes were raised, staring in astonishment at the rising darkness. What is this? The black mass rose higher and higher, then suddenly expanded, becoming a sky-covering darkness. Instantly, the entire city was shrouded in darkness, appearing small and pitiful. No, this familiar scene made everyone freeze for a moment before realizing something. I am the Lord of Darkness. The appearance of the cold voice intensified the fear on everyone's faces. It's the Lord of Darkness. We're finished. Not to mention the despairing onlookers, Buck and the others were practically dumbfounded. The wanted criminal they could easily manipulate, the one the kingdom wanted, was actually the Lord of Darkness. No wonder the mental attack failed. How could mortals shake a god? The Lord of Darkness, who caused the destruction of the Harvest Church and the fall of the Goddess of Harvest. They had wanted and attacked the Lord of Darkness. Everyone collapsed. This kind of thing from a play was actually happening. Mortals had offended a god. In an instant, despair filled everyone's hearts. Buck muttered blankly, how could this happen? Bruce, in despair, heard his mutterings and instantly erupted in rage. It's all your fault, you idiot. You damned idiot. He glared at Buck with malice, wishing he could tear him to pieces. He swore that if time could turn back, he would kill this blind man with his own hands. Bruce didn't know whether to admire his blindness or praise his keen eyesight. To be able to spot a god in a crowd at a glance, that kind of talent. Thanks to Black Cat in the Rain for the 500 coin reward. Thanks to Moonlit Sky for the 100 coin reward. Chapter 465 The Fallen God. Buck noticed Bruce's gaze, his body trembling involuntarily, fear filling his heart. High in the sky, Su-Yun gazed at the tiny city, glancing at Buck and the others. The next second, a black beam of light shot down. Boom. No, the black light engulfed the terrified Buck and his companions. When the black light dissipated, the trembling crowd in the distance was horrified to discover that those who had offended the gods had all vanished into thin air. This terrifying scene chilled the people to the bone, making them realize that those who offended the gods would indeed meet a bad end. Su-Yun was about to leave when he suddenly noticed something, his gaze shifting slightly. In the crowd, Julio, the manor owner who wasn't standing with Buck and the others, had a look of relief on his face. Luckily, I wasn't standing with him, fearing danger. He hadn't shown himself earlier, a wise move indeed, he thought with relief. Thank goodness the Lord of Darkness hadn't discovered him. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, a black beam descended from the sky. Julio's eyes widened. I've been discovered, he cried out in fear. But before he could finish, a sharp pain shot through him, and he vanished into thin air. After dealing with the little ants, Su-Yun turned and left without looking back. The darkness receded quickly, and the sun shone brightly again. Almost everyone in the city wore expressions of relief and lingering fear. Thankfully, the Lord of Darkness hadn't been angry, otherwise. Of course, While most were relieved, some weren't afraid at all. Instead, they were filled with excitement, as if witnessing the truth. Among them was a disheveled old man with a full head of white hair who had seen the Lord of Darkness up close. While others excitedly tried to alleviate their fear, he stumbled home, looking dazed. As soon as he entered, he rushed into a large art studio. Soon after, an old man appeared before a sheet of white paper about 1.5 meters in size, painting with fervor. As if caught in a burst of inspiration, he applied paint flawlessly, without making a single mistake. As the sun completely set and the world plunged into darkness, a painting appeared, a painting belonging to God, a sky shrouded in darkness and shadow, and a central figure surrounded by people, indifferently gazing at the world. The entire painting was filled with dark tones, but for some reason, a ray of light was depicted in the dark sky, shining directly upon that being. An eerie light shone through the darkness. Nicola himself didn't know why he painted this ray of light. It was purely based on a vague inspiration. The moment he painted it, he was stunned. Then, strangely, he discovered that this ray of light seemed perfectly natural in the painting. Upon further observation, he found that while the painting seemed normal at first glance, prolonged viewing revealed a distorted quality that could cause mental confusion and disorientation. Exhausted, having plummeted from the peak of his energy to the depths of despair, Nicola, in a daze, leaned back in his chair and fell asleep. The next day, the servants found Nicola lying in his chair, clutching his paintbrush, forever asleep. Along with the painting, the renowned artist's last work, known to the world as the Divine Descent, was also discovered. The followers of the Lord of Darkness were overjoyed, guarding the painting as if it were a sacred object. Of course, some were puzzled by the light emanating from the painting, which remained an unsolved mystery. After Su-Yun left, he immediately traded the manor again. This time, however, he did it under a different guise to avoid a repeat of the previous incident. Under the reddening sunset, after dismissing all his servants, Su-Yun lay on a high-backed chair, quietly watching the setting sun. Just then, Su-Yun sensed something, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. His physical body underwent some changes. As if something had appeared out of thin air, a dark power was born within him. At the same time, a feeling of discomfort washed over him. Light and darkness collided. The power of light flowing through his flesh and blood constantly repelled this opposing force. The moment it appeared, the two would immediately fight and repel each other. This meant that as time passed, the power of darkness remained in its nascent stage. No, frowning, Su-Yun controlled the power of light within his body, directly expelling it. As soon as the power left his body, a white light emanated from around him, which he immediately controlled to become colorless to avoid attracting attention. Once the light disappeared, without any resistance, darkness invaded his entire body. However, even without the power of light, the cells that had been corrupted by light remained essentially unchanged. They were resisting. Every cell in his body was in excruciating pain, and his flesh had become a battlefield between the two forces. No. A thought struck Su-Yun, and he instinctively tried to use the coordinates of the small black sphere to teleport the Ark of the Covenant to completely seal the power of light within his body. But just as he was about to act, a flash of inspiration struck him, and he suddenly remembered something. A black vortex appeared, and a fist-sized black stone appeared in his hand. He had been gathering dust in a corner for this artifact of the fallen god, until a sudden flash of inspiration struck him. As for the artifact's power, it corrupted living beings. While its effect on gods was weak, the physical body wasn't a god, so the effect shouldn't be much less. The corruption and reversal of light power was simply dark power, wasn't it? This aligned perfectly with the authority of darkness. Of course, if something went wrong, it wouldn't matter, he could simply expel the corrupting power. The vast light rules his body now possessed were far beyond the reach of the mere artifact. Su-Yun activated the fallen artifact. In an instant, a black light emerged from the stone and enveloped his body. Su-Yun was slightly startled. The previously evenly matched, mutually resisting forces within his body instantly shifted. The cells of light were tainted with darkness, beginning to twist and change, the light growing dimmer and dimmer until it gradually turned pitch black. With this transformation, the born dark power surged forth, and under internal and external coercion, the light rapidly vanished. Before long, the twisted darkness engulfed and occupied his entire body, causing a series of changes. His long, jet-black hair and eyes as dark as an abyss gave him an ethereal and eerie aura. What am I now? Su-Yun couldn't help but think of a name. Fallen God. A god beyond the outer gods, appearing in books, possessing omnipotent and unrestrained power, a corrupted and evil version of God. Chapter 466, Obtaining the Dark Authority. The two versions even have similar declarations, but their meanings are vastly different. The real God, after death, the souls of believers return to God, and at a certain stage, believers are resurrected, receiving a glorious, incorruptible body, achieving complete redemption. The fallen God, the eternally sleeping one, is not the dead. In the wondrous eternity, even death vanishes. When the stars return to their positions, the continent rises, and the sleeping God awakens. At that time, people will find pleasure in slaughter and madness, morality and law will vanish, and God will tell us things we do not know. Suyun pondered. Of course, this fabricated fallen God, even the term fallen, is relative. To the fallen God, he is not fallen. Fallen is merely a human perception. After all, fallen is only an insignificant part of omnipotence. He can create the world at any time and do anything he desires. How can fallen explain this so-called fallen? It's just a superficial human view. Suyun shook his head, ceasing his thoughts and focusing on his body. After darkness filled his body, something seemed to be gestating. A slight smile played on Suyun's lips. It seemed that, given time, the Dark Authority was practically secured, and the two goals set by the photon system to increase his strength were now complete. Next, I need to accumulate faith crystals. The faith power generated daily by the billions of believers in the real world couldn't be wasted. He could try condensing it into faith crystals. He hadn't tried it before, but it seemed to be a mindless process, so it shouldn't be difficult. Suyun mobilized his faith power and tried to control the condensation. Sure enough, no problems arose, and he directly condensed faith crystals. In the next few years, he would definitely harvest a huge pile of faith crystals. However, it's still not enough. Suyun shook his head. Over the past few years, he'd only managed a few hundred level 9 faith crystals at most. Adding the faith crystals from the harvest goddess, he should have around 5,000, but that was still too few. These faith crystals would at most increase his strength by 100-fold, which he didn't think would be enough to deal with a true god. Faced with an unknown true god, and with life threatened, it's always better to be prepared. Suyun's expression shifted, and a thought formed in his mind. The fastest way to obtain faith crystals was, of course, to plunder others. Suyun hesitated, unsure whether to rob those gods. He hadn't considered annihilating them. If he killed a few, the rest might be hiding in some obscure corner. However, robbing seemed beneath his dignity. Wait, what does the Lord of Darkness have to do with my God of Light? Suyun suddenly understood. He was currently in disguise. The Lord of Darkness wielded dark power, so it was normal for him to do dark things, right? Thinking this, he couldn't stay still any longer and decided to take advantage of the gestation period of his dark power to pay a friendly visit to his 4 companions who had comprehended the rules. Nothing unexpected happened during the process. These 4 were wealthy and powerful. After Suyun threatened them with believers and promised to forgive and forget their past grudges if they only wanted faith crystals, they hesitated only briefly before paying a hefty sum. Of course, Suyun didn't go too far. He only asked for half of what the Goddess of Harvest had asked for, 2,000 level 9 faith crystals. With a pained expression and a forced submission, Suyun obtained 8,000 level 9 faith crystals. Then, believing that even a small amount is still valuable, he inadvertently passed through the territories of some ordinary level 9 gods and reluctantly collected a batch of protection money. Surprisingly, while these ordinary level 9 gods weren't as wealthy as the god of machinery, their numbers were greater, and the faith crystals he collected were even more plentiful. After this trip, Suyun tallied up the quantities, a total of 22,000 crystals. Adding the Goddess of Harvest's share, that's over 26,000. Suddenly, Suyun felt a surge of confidence. He should have some power to resist the true gods now, right? Following this, Suyun began his leisurely daily life. Until more than a year later, one afternoon, his physical body suddenly underwent a strange change, catching him completely off guard. In the quiet manor, in the vibrant, flower-filled back garden, a gigantic black cocoon stood tall. An invisible pressure emanated from the manor, causing all mortals near it to tremble and flee in panic. Squeak, 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 large numbers of insects and rats scurried about, wishing they had more legs. The sun set, and darkness fell. Suddenly, the black energy ball trembled, scattering a large amount of black mist. In the dim light, A strange scene appeared. Any plants that came into contact with a black mist began to grow bizarrely, becoming twisted and deformed, their reflections resembling grotesque claws. The black mist dissipated, revealing what lay within the cocoon. A dense mass of darkness floated in the air, like a black hole constantly absorbing light, obscuring its contents. Suyun's lips twitched slightly. He realized that his current state was similar to his original form, both being shrouded in secrecy. However, his body felt similar to his divine body, yet there were differences, likely due to the physical form. Besides the bloodline godhood, his consciousness entered the body and was quickly drawn to the divine spark within. In the pitch-black divine space, a dark divine core with 18 facets floated. A divine core, Suyun sighed, glancing at its color a few more times. It's currently in the state of a first-level god, he pondered, not too worried, because having just obtained the dark divine core, a feeling of advancement washed over him. The divine core had met the conditions for advancement. A black vortex quickly appeared, rapidly engulfing the dark body. In the divine stone space, the black and white figures floated opposite each other. Suyun thought of something and activated a passage to the real world with a small black sphere. In an instant, threads of faith rapidly connected in the void near the divine core. In the blink of an eye, these threads of faith, enough to make one's scalp tingle, appeared around the dark divine core. An even stronger feeling of advancement washed over him. Suyun, he had actually succeeded in having a believer split into two threads of faith without any unexpected problems. Suyun didn't think too much about it and released the restrictions. His divine status began to advance. Level 1. Level 5. Level 9. Suyun jumped to level 9 in a flash. If other gods knew this, they would probably turn into green with envy on the spot. Next is to comprehend the rules. Thanks to Black Cat in the Rain for the 500 coin reward. Thanks to Dream Poet Wanderer for the 1500 coin reward. Thanks to Titan Tite for the 100 coin reward. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 467 Extraterrestrial Visitors. Since the consciousness within the physical body is inherently unified, even now as the god of darkness, he can still use the divine arts of light, although the power of light must be borrowed from his original body. Without any difficulty, Suyun easily used the photon system's divine arts. As the system sank into the dark godhead, his understanding of the rules of darkness instantly surged, his comprehension gradually increasing. Similar to understanding the rules of light, understanding the rules of darkness didn't take long either. From then on, besides opening the small black sphere to condense the power of faith in the real world, Suyun spent his days familiarizing himself with and training his dark divine power. In the blink of an eye, 15 days passed, each day a repetitive process, and he had grasped most of the rules without any major changes. In the real world, in the dark and desolate universe, a month ago, near the Orion constellation, 10 long, dark, elongated objects were moving at high speed. Upon closer inspection, these 10 objects were enormous, several kilometers in size, and their appearance was undeniably high-tech. From a unique perspective, these 10 objects appear to be flying through highly curved space-time at an astonishing speed exceeding the speed of light. If any knowledgeable Earthlings witnessed this, they would likely exclaim in surprise that these 10 objects were using warp drives. The universe is not flat, it is undulating and curved. If we imagine the universe as a large membrane, its surface is curved, and the entire membrane might even be a closed soap bubble. Although parts of the membrane appear flat, the curvature of space is ubiquitous. A small boat rowing on a flat river will not accelerate because the river is flat, equivalent to zero curvature. However, if it suddenly encounters a waterfall, the boat will move at an extremely high speed. In the universe, the curvature of space helps spacecraft reach the speed of light, or even exceed it many times over. These 10 spaceships are traveling at faster than light speed in one direction, seemingly heading somewhere. Inside the warships, the space is spacious and filled with facilities. In a dining area, 3 humanoid beings are conversing. These 3 beings were covered in light green scales, with long, pointed fingers, sharp teeth, and amber eyes. Unlike Earthlings who have 2 eyes, they had an extra eye in the center of their foreheads. They were also incredibly tall, standing 5 to 6 meters, making Earthlings appear like tiny reptiles. They were currently drinking beverages and communicating telepathically. What on earth happened at the testing ground? Not a single piece of information has come through, a 6-meter-tall, muscular-scaled being said angrily. Those foolish gray reptiles, could they have betrayed us? Another, more slender-scaled being smiled upon hearing this, his voice echoing in the minds of the others. I don't think so. Those gray reptiles don't have that kind of courage. Maybe something's wrong, the last one sneered. Could it be that they made some mistake and are afraid to contact us, planning to deal with it quietly, but that's taken too long, the slender-scaled man questioned. They've been out of contact for too long. It shouldn't take that long to deal with it. Something's very wrong. Seeing that they were about to argue, the 6-meter-tall scaled man who had spoken first said, "All right. We'll all go to the test site together and see. Hopefully, nothing major will happen." A ferocious glint flashed in his amber eyes. If things went wrong, they would have to destroy the test site. The three finished their drinks and left to rejoin their companions. What the people on these 10 warships didn't know was that while they were heading towards Earth, 12 gray warships of similar size were also traveling at faster than light speed towards Earth. Inside the first warship, people were talking. They were 3 or 4 meters tall, with blue skin, dinosaur-like heads, and wearing jumpsuits of various colors. Among the dozen or so aliens, a tall, muscular dinosaur man named Rice, dressed in a black jumpsuit, spoke up. "We must stop this cruel operation by the Orions," the dinosaur men murmured amongst themselves. "Cruel bastards. They've broken the rules. We must gather evidence and bring them to justice. I heard they've set up an illegal testing ground and destroyed lower-level civilizations multiple times," Rice said with a compassionate expression, nodding firmly. "Even weak intelligent beings deserve protection. We can't let the Orions destroy their civilization. There exist cruel, advanced civilizations in the universe that frequently commit illegal acts, and there also exist civilizations that protect weaker civilizations from invasion and interference, just as there are animal rights groups on Earth." A sentimental dinosaur man said anxiously, "It's unimaginable what would happen to those weak creatures if we were even a little late. We'd better act quickly." The technological gap between the two sides was too vast. They could already imagine what would happen if that fragile civilization, still in its early stages of development, encountered the Orions. "There's no other possibility but misfortune. Don't worry, our warships are equipped with the latest engines. They're definitely not as fast as us." "That's good." As they talked, the 12 warships sped towards Earth at an astonishing speed. Time passed, and they reached the outer reaches of the solar system. The 12 warships, each several kilometers in size, slowed down after reaching the outer solar system, proceeding at a normal pace. Upon arrival, they discovered a small object, a mechanical artifact that had been flying for decades, attempting to break through the solar system and reach the outer reaches. At the control console of the foremost warship, 15 dinosaur-like beings sat in chairs, watching the projected image, clear and realistic. "What a curious civilization, but this isn't a good thing." Rice shook his head, casually using an instrument to analyze the information contained within the object. The intelligent mechanical voice echoed. "Analyzing. Analysis complete." As the information was deciphered, the message began to play. "Greetings from the children of planet Earth, greetings recorded in over 50 human languages." A greeting from a former president of the United States slowly resounded. "This is a gift from a tiny, distant world. It contains our voices, our science, our images, our music, our thoughts and feelings. We are striving to live our time and enter yours." In addition to the greeting to extraterrestrial intelligent beings, the intelligence system also deciphered a great deal of other information. Chapter 468 Alien Warship. The deciphered information contained various natural sounds such as thunder, crashing waves, and bird song, as well as over 20 world-famous musical pieces, and information about humans, animals, plants, and other aspects of Earth from different countries. Simultaneously, it used the rays from 14 neutron stars for location, indicating the position of the solar system. If an extraterrestrial civilization could obtain this information, they could pinpoint Earth's location simply by finding the recorded positions of a few neutron stars. This was why Su-Yun had overlooked this, otherwise, he would have definitely destroyed it for humanitarian purposes and then lamented the Americans' blunder. The 15 dinosaur men at the control console, who had come up with such an awkward idea, all showed a flicker of emotion. "They're too naive. Luckily, we're not here to invade. Rice shook his head. "Doesn't this prove they need our protection?" said a dinosaur man named Leo. "You're right," Rice agreed, thinking that he had a duty to educate the weak humans about the dangers of the universe, so they wouldn't be careless or underestimate the dangers of advanced civilizations. While they were talking, the 12 warships had already arrived near Jupiter, very close to Earth. Because they made no attempt to conceal their presence, the warships were directly observed by observatories around the world. At NASA in the United States, exclamations of surprise rang out. "These are spaceships." Astronomers stared at the 12 enormous spaceships, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Alien invasion," reported immediately. Soon, information about the unidentified flying objects in the solar system was relayed to higher authorities, drawing serious attention. People hadn't forgotten the recent alien incident, the thought still sent chills down their spines. Naturally, some immediately connected it to the Gray incident, thinking it couldn't be such a coincidence. How long had it been? The appearance of unidentified flying objects in the solar system must be inextricably linked to those Grays. Immediately, high-ranking officials in various countries were on high alert. Soon, unpleasant rumors began to circulate. Even though high-ranking officials tried to suppress information, many people possessed private telescopes, and astronomers weren't immune to leaks. Information inevitably leaked to some extent, leading to unrest. Fortunately, through various deletions and attempts to deflect attention, the situation was temporarily stabilized. What no one expected was that, despite their meticulous efforts to stabilize morale and prevent panic and crime, the remote attack from the dinosaur-like beings completely thwarted their plans. Around noon in the United States, streaming media worldwide began broadcasting footage of 15 bizarre, upright beings. They were 3 to 4 meters tall, with dinosaur-like heads, and wore various colored bodysuits. Aliens, my God! After the initial shock, fear gripped the world, recalling the recent catastrophe. Was the apocalypse about to repeat itself? Last time, a holy child saved them. Who would save them this time? Just as they were gripped by terror, the alien beings spoke. "Friends of Earth, we are here to help." With a dinosaur-like being's explanation, the world's heart seized, and a sigh of relief was slowly escaping their grasp. From their words, it was learned that these dinosaur-like beings had come to help Earthlings stop the invasion of the Orionians, the superior civilization that was monitoring the Greys. They said the Orions' warships were incredibly powerful, far beyond the capabilities of human technology, but assured them they would protect the still weak human civilization. A few hours later, a spacecraft arrived on Earth. Based on their impression of the Voyager probe, they landed in the U.S. Capitol. 5 dinosaur men, as representatives, disembarked from the spacecraft, greeted by a group of high-ranking U.S. officials. Intending to observe, the dinosaur men didn't choose covert contact, but instead openly appeared outside the city. This resulted in a large crowd gathering at a distance, holding recording equipment, watching them with excitement and trepidation. The 3 to 4 meter tall dinosaur men standing next to humans made the size difference immediately apparent. The humans looked like dwarfs. At this moment, Rice, looking puzzled, turned to a middle-aged man in a suit. "I heard you have monitors here. What happened to them?" Upon arriving, they immediately searched the test site for monitors, but found nothing, only some remnants of equipment on the moon, which puzzled them greatly. Out of respect, they hadn't secretly spied on the network and therefore didn't know the reason. This, Jeff, caught off guard by the question, hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I wonder if they believe in God," he thought subconsciously. His face hardened with anticipation, and he prepared to explain. But then, a gasp rang out from Rice's mouth. "They're here so fast." 5 dinosaur men looked up in one direction, their eyes filled with vigilance. Jeff was stunned, momentarily speechless. In the solar system, 10 black warships arrived, quickly appearing not far from the moon. Upon arrival, they discovered 12 gray warships anchored on the outer edge of Earth. The scale beings inside instantly paled. Through the markings on the warships, they easily identified them, those meddlesome fellows again. "Damn it, those reptiles," they cursed. They knew without a doubt why those people were here. Soon, the two sides' warships formed a standoff, neither daring to open fire. Neither the loss of their ships nor the threat to their lives deterred them from engaging in battle. Upon learning that the blue-skinned leader, Rice, had gone to Earth, the scaled people immediately sent their leader as well, intending to negotiate. In the blink of an eye, a silver flying saucer arrived in the United States, landing at the location where Rice and the others' aircraft were parked. Out of vigilance, Rice and his 5 companions also approached their own aircraft, ready to retaliate at any moment. The Scaled People's leader, 10, had just landed when he instantly looked at Rice and his 5 companions standing among a large group of people in the distance, and shouted angrily, "What are you blue-skinned people doing here?" Rice looked at the 7 Orions who had appeared and said, "Orions, you are breaking the law. You'd better leave. We will protect the Earthlings, you need evidence to speak." "This is slander," Ter retorted immediately, refusing to admit anything. Chapter 469 Divine Artifact. Rice questioned, "Then how do you explain those little grays on Earth's moon?" T was taken aback, then, as if realizing something, sneered, "How should I know? You wiped out the little grays, and you call yourselves kind. No wonder he didn't find any little grays on the moon. They were killed by these blue-skinned people." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Rice frowned. He had previously speculated that these Orions might have received advance warning and evacuated the little grays, but now it seemed unlikely. It really had something to do with Earthlings. Seeing Rice's denial, T said disdainfully, "If it wasn't you, it was these Earthlings." He turned to look at the Earthlings in the distance, and upon seeing a group of people holding black guns, subtly pointing them, he scoffed. "Inferior beings are inferior beings. They think they can threaten us with equally inferior weapons." His words were translated into Earth language by the instrument. A bang. The Americans watching on their phones, and netizens around the world watching the live stream, instantly erupted in uproar. A red-haired white woman angrily shouted, "Who are you calling a lower life form? You inferior alien native." The 7 Orions understood, instantly enraged, their amber eyes squinting with cruelty. They charged towards the humans, revealing their intention to attack. The armed guards were startled, their first reaction being to fire. Bang bang bang. Bullets streaked through the air, flying towards the 7 Orions at speeds invisible to the naked eye. Crack crack crack. As if hitting something soft, to everyone's astonishment, the bullets were stopped by the Orions' clothing. Even their seemingly empty heads had a hidden protective shield. The crowd calmed down. The Orions' clothing was practically a replica of the Greys' clothes. Some pulled out armor-piercing sniper rifles, even rocket launchers, trying to break through the clothing. Bang! Boom! A wave of fire erupted, and the people stared expectantly, their faces filled with disbelief. Sniper rifles capable of piercing thick steel plates and powerful rocket launchers were completely ineffective against a piece of clothing worn by the aliens. Not only were they ineffective, but no damage was even visible on the clothing. It was as if nothing had happened. "Inferior reptiles. Don't insult us with your weak methods," a slender Aryan laughed. He then prepared to use his equipment to eliminate these fragile humans. However, before they could even move, the dinosaur-like human stepped in front of them. "Earthlings, get out of here," Rice said in a deep voice. "Your civilization is too low, you can't break the protective clothing. Leave this to us." "Rice, are you really going to oppose us?" Tess shouted sharply. "What good will helping them do you, to defend us for these weak Earthlings?" Rice and the others replied. Suddenly, a voice rang out from afar, drawing everyone's attention. "You alien heretics!" A tall, muscular, and handsome man strode towards them. Beside him followed 8 clergymen in white robes. "It's Captain Simon." Someone recognized him and exclaimed in surprise, especially upon seeing what Simon held in his hands, their eyes widening in shock. "It's a divine artifact." My God, everyone who saw what Simon held was stunned and awestruck. A golden spear, gleaming brilliantly in the sunlight, and a white hardcover book. No one failed to recognize these 2 items. The Spear of Godslayer. The Book of Creation, a golden spear that took the life of the Holy Son, and a white book given to humanity by the Holy Son in his final moments before ascending to heaven. Hearing the Earthlings' exclamations, both the dinosaur people and the oral people wore expressions of confusion. God, they quickly understood the Earthlings' meaning of God, but that was an illusion. There was no such thing as a god. Their civilization had also had superstitions at the beginning, but they had all been dispelled in the end. The Orions looked on with pity and disdain. Indeed, inferior beings, trapped in fantasy, and so many people believe it. They only glanced at the Earthlings, but all of them looked shocked, not a single one questioning or doubting. They were clearly deeply misled. Just as they were thinking this, they saw the Earthling named Simon rushing towards them with 2 objects in his hand. Such speed, they were startled after a glance. Humans could move at such speed? When they saw Simon stop, they saw him leap up, wielding a golden spear, aiming for the stomach of a 5-meter-tall Aryan. Foolish, the Aryan leader sneered. Those were just low-level firearms before, now they were even more outrageous, trying to attack these earthlings with protective suits using only a physical weapon. They must be out of their minds. The Aryan being attacked, named Qing, flashed disdain in his eyes. He didn't even bother to dodge, preparing to see the guy's despair. Watching from afar, the dinosaur man Rice looked anxious and hurriedly warned, "Don't." Thud. A sharp pain shot through his abdomen, and strange green blood splattered out. The golden spear had pierced through him effortlessly from the front to the other, leaving a bloody hole. The disdainful Qing, the sneer-wielding Ten, and Rice, who had wanted Simon to give up and return, all froze. An ordinary physical weapon had actually pierced through his protective suit. The protective suit seemed to have turned into water, offering no resistance whatsoever. Not only were they incredulous, but even the humans who had been eagerly anticipating his return were stunned, gasping in disbelief. They had previously witnessed sniper rifles and rocket launchers being completely useless, yet against this divine weapon. Instantly, everyone's eyes blazed with fervor. At this moment, the Orman Qing screamed, letting out a beast-like roar, as Simon, wielding the god-slaying spear, slashed downwards, leaving a huge wound in his abdomen without any resistance. Green blood sprayed everywhere. "Heal him quickly," Tess shouted to Qing. Having said that, he wasn't too worried, because all the Or people possessed a large number of tiny nanorbits within their bodies. What Earthlings considered serious injuries were, to them, just minor wounds, which would quickly heal under the nanorbits' healing abilities. Thanks to Lost Ship Disappointed Man for the 1,500 coin reward. Thanks to Black Cat in the Rain for the 1,000 coin reward. Thanks to Lululu for the 588 coin reward. Thanks to Capsized Ship for the 100 coin reward. Thanks to Little Book Pound for the 100 coin reward. Thanks to Irwa for the 100 coin reward. Thanks to Lind Drink for the 100 coin reward. Suggestion: fried salted fish. Chapter 470. The Creator. What the Aurelian leader was most concerned about was the bizarre weapon in the human's hands. He stared intently at Simon and shouted, "What is that?" "This is the divine artifact of our god," Simon said devoutly. "God? Divine artifact?" Te was stunned, then became angry, feeling that this human was playing a trick on him, and was about to shout angrily. But before he could say anything, a panicked voice came from Qing. "My wound won't heal." Everyone turned to look at Qing and found that the wound that should have been repaired by the nanobits was not healing at all, and was even bleeding profusely, unstoppable. In just a short while, Qing was squatting on the ground, looking like he was on the verge of death. Simon was not surprised by this result. The Holy Lance did indeed have the effect of preventing healing. Although he didn't know what healing method the alien used, under the mysterious power of the Holy Lance, nothing would work. For a moment, both Te and the Orleans, as well as the dinosaur people, were shocked. This seemingly ordinary physical weapon not only had the power to pierce protective suits, but also had the effect of preventing nanobits from repairing wounds. What was the principle behind this? Especially after seeing that the wound repair wasn't working, Qing frantically pulled out a vial of blue healing potion and poured it down without a word. The wound was still bleeding and hadn't healed. Everyone's gaze towards Simon and Golden Spear changed. What they had initially seen as just an exceptionally sharp holy spear suddenly took on a mysterious aura. Could it really be a divine weapon? Special looked at the weakened Qing, exclaiming in shock and anger, "What did you do?" Seeing Simon's silence, he became even angrier. A mere inferior being. Special's eyes were ferocious, and a red light appeared in his right hand, unleashing a fist-thick red beam that shot towards Simon at incredible speed. "Oh no, it's a laser!" The onlookers, including Rice, were startled, their faces showing anxiety. They were about to intervene, knowing that with a laser's power, how could a human body possibly withstand it? However, Simon easily dodged the laser with a sidestep, and no matter how Special swung the laser beam, it couldn't hit him. This reaction and speed, the dinosaur man was bewildered, his mind filled with disbelief that Earthlings could be so powerful and their physical abilities so strong. Seeing the incredibly agile Simon, Te's eyes grew increasingly ferocious. The next second, an invisible, gravity-like force suddenly appeared on Simon's body, causing him to falter and halt his movement. Beside him, a red light was about to sweep over. Anyone caught in it would be sliced in two. Several dinosaur men's expressions changed, and they tried to intervene, unleashing equally invisible forces. The other oars, prepared, naturally wouldn't ignore this and directly neutralized their attacks. A smile appeared in Tej's eyes. No matter how fast this earthling runs, he'll still die at my hands. However, just as the oars were rejoicing, a white light erupted from Simon's body, the binding force was broken, and he vanished from his spot. The red light swept over nothing. What is that? Light. The white light emanating from the earthling stunned the alien visitors. Earthlings have this kind of glowing gene. They were incredulous. A gasp rippled through the crowd. It's supernatural power. Is this the power of God? Praise God. The voices reached his ears, making them even more confused. God again? What kind of God is this? A seed of confusion sprouted in their hearts. Seeing Simon charging towards them, Tej shouted, "Attack together!" The dinosaur man Rice, seeing this, quickly shouted, "Stop them!" In an instant, the two sides began a fierce battle. Besides the invisible power and lasers, bursts of blue lightning were constantly being shot out, and huge craters appeared frequently. Originally, the Or people outnumbered Rice and should have had the advantage against the 5 of them. However, the addition of Simon, a human without any high-tech weapons, actually caused them to fall into a disadvantageous position. Every member of their race who was attacked bled profusely from their wounds. Consumed by rage, Tej's ever vertical pupils stared intently at Simon ahead, and he made a move. Not far away, a silver flying saucer several meters high opened a gap, and suddenly blue light flashed on it. Orans, Rice and the others were shocked and furious. This was an act of blatant disregard for the rules, resorting to high-powered weapons from their flying machines. But it was too late to stop them. They only saw a massive blue laser beam, nearly a meter thick, shoot towards them with a deafening boom. If this attack landed, no one within 100 meters would be spared. The dinosaur men, wearing protective suits, might barely escape unscathed, but the humans here were absolutely doomed. Just as they were realizing the impending doom, they noticed a human named Simon pick up the white book and devoutly chant, "My lord." The white book flickered, then unleashed a massive burst of white light, protecting everyone. Boom! The blue laser cannon exploded, sending a wave of intense heat through the air. No matter how powerful the laser was, it couldn't penetrate the seemingly thin layer of white light. What is this thing? The Orans were both angry and shocked, feeling utterly bewildered. What kind of high-tech book is this? But judging from the scan results, it's clearly just an ordinary book. How could such a huge amount of energy be released? It's a strange and magical thing. The Orman couldn't help but make this assessment, and at the same time, the thought of possessing it couldn't be suppressed. If they obtained this strange thing, perhaps they could research something, and maybe their technology would advance a step forward. Inferior humans are not worthy of possessing it, Tess said in a deep voice. And that golden weapon, the 5 dinosaur men of Rice, sheltered in the white light, stared blankly at the glowing white book. "Are Earthlings this strong?" Rice murmured in a daze. Despite not having such a high level of technology, they possessed magical means, even able to resist laser cannons. Golden weapon for attack, white book for defense, a magical item, Rice exclaimed. Among the group of people nearby, a middle-aged man, upon hearing this, couldn't help but proudly say, "This is the creator's artifact." The creators Rice and the others looked at each other, their faces full of astonishment. The people looked on with arrogance, like children showing off their prized possessions to their friends. They were in a similar mood, excitedly chattering away. A white girl, fearing the aliens might misunderstand, quickly explained, "What you said before wasn't right. That wasn't the true power of the artifact." Chapter 471 Gamma Ray Burst. Rice and the others were puzzled. If it was so strong, how could it not be real power? Just as they were wondering, the girl said, "The one who possesses the Holy Lance will gain immortality. The Book of Creation's power isn't defense. What we just saw was probably just a random burst of light. I think, maybe it can even create the world. After all, it's the artifact of the Creator," the girl said, looking up. The others excitedly echoed her. "We've seen people suffer fatal wounds, yet they survived wielding the Holy Lance." Rice and the others exchanged bewildered glances. Were these Earthlings really not lying? Creator, immortality, creation, not to mention the Creator, the abilities of those two artifacts were completely different from what they had imagined, possessing even more incredible power. Just as their minds were turning to mush by the humans' words, the battle in the arena changed. After firing over a dozen laser cannons and finding them useless, Tess stopped attacking with a grim expression. The words spoken by those humans were naturally read by the machine and transmitted to their ears, immediately changing their expressions. These two items were beyond their imagination. The humans were telling the truth. Their eyes gleamed with fervent desire. If it was true, obtaining these items and thoroughly studying them would allow the people to rise to power. Even if it was false, the effects they had already demonstrated were enough to tempt them. The heat wave subsided. Humans, hand them over to us, and we can evacuate, Tess shouted in a deep voice. Simon's face darkened, and he glared at them angrily. Not only him, but those watching nearby, and those watching via live stream, all sneered. Are they crazy? These alien natives are really dreaming. They want to take God's artifacts. Hell, they're not afraid of not living to use them, offending the Creator God. Do they think they'll get away with it? Exactly. Ignorance is bliss. The people were astonished to find that the humans, who had previously shown a slight fear of them, had become fearless and even showed angry expressions towards them after discussing the God called God. What gave them courage? They didn't believe in any creator, God, and even if a creator appeared based on humanity's limited understanding, could they be more powerful than their warships? Any life on Earth was no match for their warships. So, their anger flared at his words. Humans, think carefully. Just two things. If you truly anger us, our extraterrestrial warships will attack you, and humanity will be destroyed. They couldn't shatter the Earth, but destroying continents and plunging the world into a prolonged state of death was something they could do. They could even be more brutal and destroy the atmosphere, leaving these fragile humans with only one path, death. However, under his threat, the crowd not only didn't back down, but instead glared angrily at him. You Allman, this is illegal. I warn you, don't mess around, Rice roared. Then let's fight, Tess sneered. It's just two things. As long as they hand them over, we'll leave immediately. After threatening them, he cunningly coaxed, you don't want your warship destroyed, do you? You know the value of a warship very well. Do you really want to suffer such a loss for them? This, he should have said it first, but the dinosaur men felt a pang of pain in their hearts, and hesitation appeared on their faces. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, aliens are unreliable. The same thought popped into everyone's minds, and they all felt a sense of sorrow. An old man in his 60s in the crowd murmured a prayer. Almighty and eternal Heavenly Father, the Orman interrupted disdainfully, your so-called father won't help you. He will also fear our warship. He might be watching right now, afraid of our warship but too afraid to come out. Ha ha ha. The crowd fell silent, listening to the Orman's words, looking at them in shock. Tell and the others were puzzled. Why were they looking at them with such pity? Had they said something wrong? Warships could easily destroy the surface of this Earth, so why would they fear some god on Earth? Just as they were wondering, a strange scene appeared. The sky had suddenly brightened. This is, the Orman and the Dinosaurman looked up in confusion. The white light grew stronger and stronger until the entire sky was filled with white light. This strange phenomenon shocked everyone, especially the Orman and the Dinosaurman, who received a terrifying message. The solar system. Aliens on warships stared in astonishment at the scene in the starry sky. The azure Earth had turned white, radiating a strong white light. What happened? They were somewhat panicked. Receiving the message from the warship, Rice and the others were all shocked. What on earth had happened? Just then, several thick white bolts of lightning descended from the sky, attacking the Orman. Boom boom boom. The screams of the Orman and the others rang out. In the horrified eyes of the Dinosaurman, the protective suits on the Orman struck by the lightning vanished instantly, and their green skin was charred black. The Orman, severely wounded by the Holy Lands, was struck and instantly lost his life. The dinosaur people retreated in panic. They found that everything that had happened on Earth since they arrived was perplexing and shocking. A human exclaimed, "My God, they've angered God." The dinosaur people and the Orman, who was groaning in pain, stared wide-eyed. God, the creator humans talk about, did Earth really have a creator? Incredulous expressions appeared on their faces. They didn't want to believe it, but how could they explain such a massive phenomenon in attack? Several more white lightning bolts descended from the sky. A beast-like howl echoed. The few who were struck were charred and bruised, feeling fear. They wanted to beg for mercy, but the white lightning continued to strike, ignoring the pleas. If I'm not having a good time, your Earth won't have one either. Tez's face was full of ferocity, and the chip embedded in his flesh, which was not yet destroyed, immediately transmitted information, activating the warship. Soon, in the shadows, noticed the warship's movements in space, and his eyes turned cold. He had been habitually opening the small black sphere today, intending to condense his faith power. Noticing the abnormal increase in his faith power, he discovered these aliens. He had initially intended to observe, but the Oral people's thieving behavior amused him, so he simply used the Ark of the Covenant to unleash thunder and let them taste his power. Seeing the warship activate, Suyun's eyes grew even colder. I haven't tried using gamma rays to unleash characters yet, so I'll use you as a test. Chapter 472 Radiation Burst. The Oral Chieftain, 10, gleamed with cruelty and glee. Bomb. Bomb. He began to fantasize about the Earth's continental plates being shattered, the entire world annihilated. This was the consequence of offending them, the Orals. Who cares what kind of creator you are? Just as he was maliciously anticipating this, the massive cannons on 10 dark warships near the moon flashed with purple light, emanating a dangerous aura. Boom. 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 30 purple beams, hundreds of meters long, roared towards the white glowing Earth. The Orals inside each warship gleamed with excitement and cruelty. This world would burst into beautiful colors. However, just as the vast purple beams were about to reach the white atmosphere, a sudden change occurred. Suyun activated the gamma ray burst out technique, a sense of release washing over him. After a moment's hesitation, he unleashed the divine magic towards both sides of the Earth. A terrifying, chilling power awakened. Its aura enveloped the entire Earth. Every animal and human with a keen sense of danger showed terror in their eyes, a deadly sense of impending doom washing over them. It was as if a bottomless abyss lay before them. Those standing on the edge trembled, their legs weak. The Earth, quietly rotating in the solar system, suddenly erupted with two massive white pillars of light, each the size of the Earth itself. The intense light carried terrifying energy. The void distorted, ripples spreading outwards. In that instant, a blinding burst of light erupted. Had it not been for time constraints, half the universe would have been able to see this dazzling brilliance. The 30 enormous purple beams collided head-on with the white pillars, swallowed whole without even a splash. The Orions inside the warships were filled with terror, overwhelmed by the light. In the first instant, the sturdy materials of the 10 warships became as fragile as paper, vaporizing and disappearing in the light. The two beams of light did not stop, continuing their advance, meteorites vanishing one by one, beautiful yet dangerous. In the distance, the dinosaur men on the 12 warships stared blankly at everything filled with white light. Alarms blared throughout the warship. Warning. Warning, large gamma ray source detected. Evacuation recommended. The piercing, urgent system announcement sent chills down the spines of every dinosaur man. Gamma rays, staring at the two strangely familiar beams of light simulated on the projection screen after removing the white light, a single word flashed through the minds of all the dinosaur men. Gamma ray burst. They couldn't believe it, swallowing hard as they looked at the energy levels detected by the instruments. Only massive celestial bodies, like neutron stars and black holes, could release gamma ray bursts. How could one appear on a planet, and even worse, be released by a planet? The scene of everything in its path turning to dust, yet it demonstrated the power of a gamma ray burst. They were hurtling outwards from the solar system at the speed of light. Suddenly, the dinosaur men on the warship noticed something was wrong. Wait, why is the gamma ray burst colored? The white gamma ray burst. Their eyes widened, filled with bewilderment. In particular, the moon on the projection screen, clearly within the range of the gamma ray burst, remained unharmed, as if the burst had passed right through it without intending to damage it. Exhibiting an unscientific scene that left them dumbfounded. Some of the dinosaur men, thinking of the gods spoken of by humans on Earth, paled drastically. Who is this creator possessing such power on Earth? Those on Earth, joyfully awaiting the bombing, instead of hearing the explosion, were filled with a blinding white light. The entire Earth shone as brightly as day, and all living things lost their sight. What's going on? Terrified cries echoed from all over the world. Suyun, hidden in the shadows, sensed the energy intensity and couldn't help but show surprise. The gamma ray burst's light seemed ordinary, but compared to his usual light, its intensity was thousands of times greater. If the light itself didn't contain such high energy, it would probably be even more powerful. Of course, while the power was terrifying, its mobility was less impressive. What a pity, this speed is too slow. Observing the two gamma ray bursts crawling at the speed of light through the universe, currently still within the solar system, his lips twitched. Although the power was indeed terrifying, and it was estimated that within a certain distance, anything in its path would disappear before the energy decayed. This speed, who knows how long it would take to escape the solar system and fly out of the Milky Way. Disappointment appeared on Su-Yun's face. According to his estimation, these 2 gamma-ray bursts should be able to traverse half of the universe, but the time would be calculated in hundreds of millions, which was different from his expectations. Only traversing most of the universe in an instant would meet his expectations. Only faster than light speed can achieve this, right? Su-Yun pondered. Perhaps becoming a true god could make it possible. Faster than light speed would simply break the rules of the universe, and it was impossible to achieve now. In addition, faster than light speed seemed to be able to reverse time. Of course, this was only theoretical. If it were really achieved, it would disrupt causality, and whether it could be done in the real world remained to be verified. Su-Yun thought that while he didn't know about the real world, it was highly likely that the other world could do it, but since the Time Authority was the Ouroboros of time, it would probably be crushed as soon as it was used, or it wouldn't be usable at all. He didn't continue thinking about it. Su-Yun was somewhat disappointed with the current gamma-ray burst. The next second, he withdrew the divine magic. In the solar system, the 2 beams of light that would destroy countless planets and life in the future vanished in a flash, as if they had never existed, just an illusion, leaving only the dinosaur people bewildered in the wind. Their current thoughts were probably, what the hell? A gamma-ray burst can be cancelled? What a joke. The detected energy, just looking at the numbers made the dinosaur people's scalps tingle, yet it was like a toy, easily removed if they weren't satisfied. They had already imagined a scene where the creator god, as humans called him, emitted 2 beams of light, then, finding it uninteresting, wiped them out with a thought. The dinosaur people gasped, shocked by their own fantasy. On Earth, the white light disappeared. Rice recounted what had happened, eliciting gasps of astonishment. This is a lie, terrored. The 6 surviving Orions, barely suppressing their panic, desperately tried to contact the warships. But to no avail. Just as the blue-skinned man had said, the 10 warships had been vaporized by the gamma-ray burst. Unease, fear, and regret welled up in their hearts. Creator, what on earth is this? How could such a being exist? Despair filled their eyes. Chapter 473 Darkness and Chaos. Ter was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Come out. Creator, show yourself. Almost his entire army had been wiped out, yet he hadn't even seen a single enemy. Tel had already guessed his fate, and he was unwilling to accept it. Unfortunately, the response he received was, boom, boom, boom. 6 white bolts of lightning descended. Amidst their wails, the 6 Orions, filled with resentment, were completely reduced to dust. All the onlookers shuddered, marveling at the power of God, while simultaneously breathing a sigh of relief. These arrogant alien natives were finally dead. Praise be to Almighty God, our Father in heaven. Prayers and praises resounded. After calming down from their initial excitement, people couldn't help but turn their gaze to the dinosaur men. A middle-aged man hesitated. The 5 members of the Rice group exchanged glances, their eyes now completely different from before. After this incident, humans seemed incredibly strange to them. Is this really a civilization that can't even achieve space travel? They scoffed. Putting everything else aside, the very existence of that creator was enough to terrify them. A being that toyed with cosmic catastrophes like gamma-ray bursts, could any civilization withstand that? And this was truly the upper limit of its power. Perhaps it was unleashed by that god himself, or maybe just a subordinate. Lacking intelligence, they could only estimate it high. A disguise. This is definitely a disguise, low-level civilization, Rice and the others thought. On the surface, they were low-level human civilization, but hidden beneath was terror. Rice felt he had stumbled upon a great secret, and his heart trembled. Should they risk the danger to investigate the human civilization? After a moment, he said to the humans, "It seems, human friends, you don't need us anymore." After a sigh, he said, "We need to replenish our energy on your sun. During this time, our 2 civilizations can exchange information." The humans naturally wouldn't refuse. Exchanging with such a peaceful civilization was a good thing. If they could glean some knowledge, it would greatly benefit human development. So, while openly exchanging information, the dinosaur men secretly began gathering intelligence. When the videos of past miracles and the numerous myths and legends were revealed to them, the dinosaur people gasped. Especially when they saw the story of Earth being destroyed by a meteorite, and the destroyed cities being restored to their former glory, their eyes widened in disbelief. This is the power of that god. Thinking about the creation myths they had collected, the dinosaur people felt their heads were about to spin. The theory of divine creation kept flashing through their minds. The more they observed, the more they were awestruck by the myths hidden within humanity. Earth had more than one pantheon. Besides the revealed creator god, the Egyptian sun god Ra was also a major god. Extrapolating from this, the Greek chaos, and the Eastern Pangu and Brahma, the appearance of each creation-level god gave them a chilling feeling. The others were also true. They felt a sense of dread. Earth was instantly shrouded in mystery, becoming eerie and enigmatic. Why is Earth so special? Is it the center of the universe? This thought uncontrollably arose in the dinosaur people's minds. This idea of the center originated from Earthlings. Humans had once believed that Earth was the center of the universe. What should have been a laughable situation for the dinosaur people was now far from funny. Perhaps it was true. As time passed, humanity was relegated to a realm of untouchable civilizations by the dinosaur people. Provoking humans was one thing, but if a god suddenly appeared because of their invasion of Earth, that would be truly disastrous. Suyun ignored the dinosaur people temporarily residing on Earth. As for the Or people, hopefully they won't bother me again. Otherwise, he narrowed his eyes. He was considering whether to visit the Or people's homeland. He'd wreck the entire galaxy if they came again. After thinking this, he focused his attention on the Dark Authority. Almost there, Godstone space. 3 days later, Suyun's consciousness entered the Godhood space. Finally, I've completed the comprehension. To prevent any unforeseen circumstances, he temporarily separated himself from his divine body and released the restrictions. Buzz, the pure black Godhood emitted a soft hum. Within the Godhood, dark rule fluctuations slowly emanated. The rule fluctuations grew stronger and stronger, until finally a distorted, invisible fire of rules appeared, surging and burning fiercely within the dark Godhood. The divine spark transformed into pure black core, then rapidly took shape. A dazzling, dark divine spark with 99 facets, radiating vast fluctuations of rules, floated silently in the divine spark space. The transformation continued. Buzz buzz buzz, the aura of rules grew increasingly intense, the divine spark became illusory, and then transformed into darkness, which surged outwards. The darkness merged with a physical body, appearing in every corner of the body. In that instant, a familiar, strange feeling washed over him. Suyun was dazed, feeling as if he had become that eternally existing darkness. At the last moment, he broke free from that feeling. He sighed, speechless. The second time, he couldn't advance this feeling. Trifusion, the two figures, one black and one white, exchanged a glance, then rushed towards each other. The moment their bodies touched, a strong sense of repulsion arose. Like magnets, they were repelling each other. Suyun hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and chose to continue. Under immense force, the two bodies defied the resistance and merged completely. The moment they entered his body, two terrifying rules wanted to erupt, but were suppressed by his powerful control. After a while, Suyun discovered that the rules within his body had reached a balance, like a bowl of calm water, the two clearly distinct. Frowning, he tried to merge them, but the calm water was shattered, instantly erupting into chaos. No, wavering between chaos and calm countless times, Suyun's spirits plummeted. Darkness and light were like two extremes, impossible to merge no matter what. Just as he thought of this, he suddenly noticed a detail. At the junction of the rules of light and darkness, a nearly invisible, chaotic, blurry, and hazy radiance appeared. Suyun inexplicably knew immediately that this was chaos. Or rather, a nascent form within a nascent form. After a while, he shook his head in disappointment. Something barely visible at the boundary between the two in balance, it looked like chaos, but calling it a nascent form was barely an overstatement, it was merely a facade. Over the next 10 days, Suyun tried every moment to fuse the two, but each attempt ended in failure. I need external help, Suyun concluded. Thanks to Black Cat in the Rain for the 500 coin reward. Thanks to Toad for the 100 coin reward. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 474 Warrior, Want One? Since the rules of light and darkness couldn't converge, Su-Yun had no choice but to temporarily give up and try again later when a solution was found. I've done everything I can for now. Next, I just have to wait, and then face the evil god, Su-Yun murmured solemnly, then took a moment to check on the tribe and discovered something interesting. In the year or so that the tribe had been in the other world, it had expanded rapidly. Coupled with the rumors that the god of the Yanhuang tribe was a level 9 god, the tribe expanded even faster. Now, the tribe's population had exceeded 30,000, making it a small but large tribe. Rice had been planted in batches, and the overall physical fitness of the tribesmen had improved significantly. Silk clothing was also readily available, every household raised silkworms, and most people owned 1 or 2 silk garments. These silk garments had even become a specialty of the Yanhuang tribe. Due to their fineness, comfort, and scarcity, they were highly sought after by other tribes, and owning one was considered an honor. Besides these 2 items, there was another famous specialty supplied by the Yanhuang tribe, bringing both joy and suffering to the surrounding people. In the spacious central square of the Yanhuang tribe, shouts and calls filled the air as many Yanhuang tribesmen and outsiders traded, creating a lively scene. Meanwhile, inside a walled enclosure of about 100 people, a burly man wearing a yellowish-brown jar-shaped headdress was greeting those around him. Don't miss out. The latest miniature jars, everything you want is inside. Want one, warrior? Absolutely none. Empty. Before the burly man, on a several-meter-wide animal hide, lay 25 yellowish-brown pottery jars. At first glance, these jars seemed unremarkable, but upon closer inspection, one would discover that they emitted no aura whatsoever. Even probing revealed nothing. Interesting, a 17 or 18-year-old boy from a level 5 tribe exclaimed excitedly, his eyes shining. Looks great, I'll try one, young chieftain. The 3 middle-aged men beside him hesitated. Yuan, the Yanhuang clansman selling the jars, wasn't about to let the opportunity slip away. He quickly said, 10 level 1 faith crystals each, little brother. How many do you want? They all have something inside, absolutely no empty ones, pretty cheap, give me 3. The young man thought it was a good deal. The 100 or so people watching around them revealed schadenfreude in their eyes. Another one falling into the trap. Of course, while they thought that, they were still looking forward to the process of opening the jars. They couldn't afford to buy them, but watching was fine too, right? After exchanging money for goods, the young man looked at the first jar on the ground and couldn't wait to open it. Discussions continued. I wonder what's inside this time? Will there be anything good? You're thinking too much, you know how much of a rip-off this jar is. Amidst the discussions, the young man punched the leftmost jar. With a bang, the pottery jar shattered, revealing the contents inside. The surrounding people's eyes widened, looking at the object in disbelief. A small, earthen yellow doll, about the size of a palm, which looked like it had been casually sculpted, appeared among the shards of the pottery jar. So dark, heartless, how did something so worthless end up in a jar? Hearing the discussions around him, the boy's face darkened. Seeing this, the jar maker, Yuan, quickly explained with a smile, one bad thing is fine, the next one will definitely be good. The boy thought it made sense and, with some skepticism, through the second jar crack, a small earthenware jar appeared. 2 bad things are normal, everyone has bad luck sometimes. The boy hesitated, wanting to get angry but then realizing the logic in the statement crack. A red fruit, shimmering with a faint light, appeared. Yuan flattered, congratulations, young man, this is a good thing, it can improve your physique. Really? The boy, who had initially thought it was ordinary, happily put it away. The 3 guards beside him hesitated, unsure whether to remind their young master that this divine fruit looked to be worth at most a few level 1 faith crystals, a loss. Seeing their young patriarch's expression, they couldn't bring themselves to speak. Anyway, it was just 3 jars, as long as their young patriarch was happy, that was all that mattered. Just as they were thinking this, Yuan flattered them, the guest is lucky. How about a few more big prizes that haven't appeared yet? The best stuff is among them, okay, the boy's eyes lit up, and he nodded excitedly in agreement. For some reason, he found it very interesting and couldn't wait to continue playing. The 3 guards' expressions changed, and a sense of foreboding crept into their hearts. Sure enough. Congratulations, the guest is lucky, this is a good stuff, how about a few more good stuff that haven't appeared yet, young man? 20 minutes later, all the jars on Yuan's stall disappeared, and the ground was covered with shards of pottery. The boy's eyes were red as he excitedly looked at the items scattered on the ground. This jar didn't lie to me, there really is a big prize inside. When he hadn't gotten anything after 15 jars, he thought it was a scam, but he didn't expect it to actually happen. When he opened the 20th jar, he found a small jar of holy rice inside, which was worth 100 level 1 faith crystals. The boy was overjoyed, but in his excitement, he didn't realize that he had spent 250 level 1 faith crystals and only earned about 130, a direct loss of half. Young clan leader, let's go. The 3 guards breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally over. The process of opening the jar had been excruciating. If the Yanhuang tribe hadn't been so terrifying, they would have definitely given this jar a good beating. Alright, the boy said reluctantly. Yuan suddenly smiled. Young man, you're lucky. Our Yanhuang tribe recently launched intermediate level jars. Want one? As he spoke, he reached into his storage pouch, and a porcelain jar appeared. Only 10 level 2 faith crystals. Inside are all good stuff. The minimum value is level 2 crystals, the grand prize is even more precious. It might be your level 4 faith crystal, or even something worth level 5 faith crystals. How about it, little brother? Want one? Level 5. Level 5 faith crystals. Looking at the even more beautiful porcelain jar, the boy's eyes widened, eager to try his luck. Yuan, sensing an opportunity, pulled out 30 mid-grade porcelain jars from his storage bag. The 3 guards panicked and quickly tried to dissuade him. Young clan leader, these jars are so expensive. The clan leader instructed us to use the faith crystals we brought to trade for snowflake salt. We can't. They only brought 20 level 3 faith crystals in total, and each jar cost 1 level 3 crystal, meaning they could only trade a maximum of 20. They weren't even guaranteed to get anything good. How could they waste their faith crystals on something like this? Chapter 475 Releasing the Seal of the Evil God. Upon hearing this, the young man hesitated. Seeing this, Yuan quickly said, Don't worry, sir. Our Yanhuang tribe's intermediate level jars contain snowflake wooden tokens. If you open one, you can exchange it for a large amount of snowflake salt. The young man couldn't resist and whispered his promise, just a few. Ignoring the advice, the young man bought 3 white porcelain jars. After a while, the young man hesitated, thinking that the grand prize should be among the remaining 27. If he was lucky, he couldn't resist and bought 3 more. Nothing. With red eyes, the young man gritted his teeth and smashed open the 14th white porcelain jar. Crack! A faith crystal, radiating a rich aura of faith and shimmering with a faint light, suddenly appeared among the broken porcelain shards. A level 4 faith crystal! Exclamations of surprise uncontrollably came from the surrounding crowd. This jar wasn't lying, there really was a level 4 faith crystal. Yuan flattered, Young man, you're incredibly lucky. You even got one. The young man smiled, listening to the exclamations around him, his face full of pride, secretly letting out a sigh of relief. He had decided to leave after breaking even this time, and then he could trade for snowflake salt. However, at this moment, Yuan smiled and said, Young brother, do you want to open the rest? The boy quickly shook his head and said disdainfully, There are definitely no big prizes left, how could I possibly open them? Yuan smiled and said, Young brother, you're mistaken. What you opened was the minimum. There might be more than just this one big prize in this batch. There's even a chance to get items worth 5 level 5 faith crystals. The boy looked bewildered and hesitated again. The guard beside him looked anxious and wanted to dissuade him, but it was too late. Then let's try again. A dozen minutes later, the boy left with 3 guards, looking disappointed and dejected. There really were no big prizes among those 16 white porcelain jars. The highest value was only 5 level 3 faith crystals. After this trip, the boy's pockets were almost empty. A warm call came from behind. Warrior, come again next time. Just hearing the voice, the boy shivered and unconsciously quickened his pace. He swore he would never play again. Absolutely. The boy's expression was resolute. He seemed genuinely determined not to play anymore. However, once you've played once, how far away can the second be? After the boy left, the jar-headed man waved his hand again, and another batch of low-grade pottery jars appeared on the animal hide, his shouts continuing. Don't miss out, warrior. Wanna have one? Absolutely none are empty. The 100 or so onlookers couldn't help but click their tongues in amazement. They were indeed all worthless. That thought popped into their heads. Of course, even though they thought it, they knew the jar-headed man and his jars were a rip-off. but they still couldn't resist buying them. It was as if the jars possessed a magical power, making people linger. Of course, the real reason was simply that they all harbored a gambler's mentality, believing they would definitely be lucky. The novelty and unknown prizes from opening the jars made them unable to stop. In short, even modern people might not be able to resist this, let alone these people. Observing from the shadows, Su-Yun sighed. I only passed on knowledge and rhetoric to the old priest, but I didn't expect him to create something like this. That clansman is also a talent, to be able to use the passed down words to this extent. He's truly gifted. After sighing, Su-Yun began to condense the crystal of faith. Time flew by, and more than 8 months passed in the blink of an eye under peaceful waiting. On this day, Su-Yun was practicing his divine power proficiency when his expression suddenly froze. Instantly, he focused his attention on his clone in the evil god's space. Black mist filled the sky, and a huge blue light shone brightly. It's done, prophecy asked resurrection. And, reversal, observation, warrior, spirit, and Su-Yun all looked over. Resurrection smoothed her hair and calmly said, I've prepared everything I could, life-saving measures, backup plans for the believers. Whether the advancement is successful or not is up to luck. There was some pessimism in her words. She had even made arrangements for the believers after her fall. Upon hearing this, the god's prophecy fell silent. The warrior, annoyed by the pessimistic atmosphere, shouted, What's there to be afraid of? It's just a true god. Once we succeed, we'll be true gods too. The inverted warrior nodded, reassuring them. The warrior is right. The warrior's interruption eased the tension somewhat. After a while, the spirit rose from his cross-legged position. Everything's ready, let's break the seal. He glanced at the gods, confirming their agreement. Su-Yun nodded along with the other gods, indicating they could proceed. At the same time, his true form flashed and disappeared from the divine stone space, flying away from the Yanhuan tribe. Along the way, he scattered the coordinates of the small black spheres one by one, as a final precaution. Then he focused his attention on the large number of faith crystals, waiting for the moment when the evil god's seal would be broken and the gods would ascend simultaneously. In the dim evil god space, Su-Yun and the others stood on the blue ceiling light, before the black and blue trident. The trident was over 10 meters tall, its surface shimmering with blue light and covered with tiny runes, radiating a vast and eerie aura. The eerie aura emanated from the black stains that had tainted most of the trident. I'll try first, Resurrection said with a smile. The gods agreed. A beam of green energy attacked the trident. A deafening boom resounded. Under the powerful attack, the black-blue trident trembled slightly, its blue light flashing rapidly a few times, before standing upright as if nothing had happened. What? Su-Yun and the other gods frowned, their hearts sinking. Although Resurrection's attacks were truly ineffective against other gods of the same level, this was only against gods of the same rank. Now, against a divine artifact left behind by a true god, mostly corrupted, it had almost no effect. This was just a divine artifact. What about the true god? Su-Yun took a deep breath, cautiously gazing at the black-blue trident. I'll go, the warrior shouted. With a clenched fist, a blood-red spear, intricately patterned and exuding a stench of blood, appeared in his hand in the blink of an eye. Space distorted, cracks appearing as if the spear was about to pierce through space itself. Boom. The void trembled at the moment of impact, a vast surge of energy erupting. The black-blue trident flickered rapidly with blue light, resisting. Seemingly reaching its limit, emanating a terrifying aura of rule. With a bang, the warrior's blood-red spear was deflected by the rule, and the gods were forcibly pushed back, all retreating more than 10 meters. Impossible, the gods exclaimed in disbelief. Faced with this vast rule, the gods felt insignificant, their eyes glazed over, as if they saw that great being again. The trident's rapid light gradually subsided. Thank you Black Cat in the Rain for the 500 coin reward. Thank you Poem Code for the 100 coin reward. Chapter 476 The Shattered Seal. The fact that a divine artifact possessed such power was beyond their expectations. If it were the resurrection, they could explain it away by its weak attack, but the fact that even the warrior's attacks were ineffective was unacceptable. The power of a true god was so strong, it refreshed their understanding of the true god's power once again. Resurrection worriedly asked, what do we do now? After a moment's thought, the gods couldn't help but look at inversion and hidden. Prophecy said, inversion, hidden, this divine artifact is entrusted to you. Try to see if it works. If not, We'll have to find another way. Su-Yun pondered for a moment, thinking it best not to reveal his strength if possible. He glanced at Inversion, signaling him to try first. Inversion nodded, his gaze fixed on the black and blue trident, and a thought struck him. Instantly, the space around the trident distorted, then suddenly tore open, revealing a pitch-black rift. The trident in the center was the first to be affected, the crack spreading and coming into contact with it. A burst of blue light erupted, the trident reacted strongly, and a terrifying aura of rules immediately appeared. The dark crack stopped, it was resisting the crack. It was as if the space in front of them had become incredibly solid, unshakable no matter how the special crack spread. The resurrected ones watched this scene, their eyes widening in disbelief. Resisting a special crack, no one doubted the power of the special crack. This chilled their hearts, and even Su-Yun frowned. After a long while, the gods, clinging to a sliver of hope, looked expectantly at Hidden. Hidden, you, resurrected began to say something. No, Su-Yun shook his head, feigning regret. I don't think my attack power can surpass the power of the special crack. It can't even reverse the flow, it would be a waste of my time. The gods' faces showed disappointment upon hearing this. Indeed, Resurrected's beautiful face dimmed. Among us, the reversed special crack is the most powerful. It's normal that you can't do it, Hidden. The gods fell silent, agreeing with Resurrected. Even special rifts were useless. What could possibly break through this divine artifact's defenses? But, in this way, the possibility of directly destroying the trident seemed extinguished. Resurrection gritted his teeth. Try again. If once isn't enough, then let's make it last longer. Boom. 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 Cracks erupted, swallowing all the space around the trident. Yet even so, the place where the trident stood remained intact. The gods gasped. An hour later, staring at the trident that remained steadfast amidst the cracks, unchanged, they began to doubt their existence. Prophet sighed, let's think of other ways. He had essentially given up on the idea of a direct attack. The scene fell silent. The gods, their faces contorted in pain, began to ponder deeply. The spirit stared at the trident, a hint of hesitation flashing in its eyes, lost in thought. Su-Yun glanced at the spirit, then turned his gaze to the nearly 10,000-meter-long blue orb of light. Suddenly, he noticed something. The tiny gaps emanating black energy on the orb instantly drew his attention. Su-Yun pondered for a moment. Not long after, his voice rang out in the quiet environment. Only a true god can destroy a true god's artifact, and only a true god can defeat a true god, he said, uttering a seemingly nonsensical statement. The gods were taken aback, looking at him with confusion, unsure of his meaning. Secret, what you say is quite right, but where are we going to find a true god? And, Prophecy opened his mouth, then hesitated. Although he didn't finish, the other gods knew what he was about to say. How could they possibly control a true god? They'd be lucky if they weren't easily killed. Su-Yun said, isn't there one over there? He then looked at the blue light cluster. He then explained his plan, asking Invert to try widening the gap, causing the evil god's power to leak out in large quantities, thus accelerating the erosion of the trident. The gods were amazed. Invert's eyes lit up, and he laughed. I'll try. As soon as he finished speaking, spatial fluctuations spread, and the gap in the 10,000-meter-high blue light cluster instantly twisted and changed. Invert felt the strain, but he persevered through gritted teeth. All the gods sensed it, although the visible size of the gaps remained the same, the actual space within them began to stretch. The slowly flowing black mist suddenly changed, like a floodgate being opened, leaking out even more rapidly. Black mist filled the sky. Under the gods' astonished gazes, the black mist began to erode the blue light cluster in the trident. The trident reacted strongly, its blue light flashing violently. Its eerie aura intensified, and the black stains that occupied most of it seemed to deepen and spread further. The warriors exclaimed happily, secretly, you're really clever. Admiring glances were directed at Su-Yun. Su-Yun didn't pay attention, pondering, it looks like it will take a while, can you still hold on? He looked at the struggling Inverted. Inverted nodded slightly, indicating that it could still hold on. Let's wait, Prophet smiled. The gods smiled in agreement. Compared to their previous despair, things were much better now, and they were all in good spirits. Time was the least valuable thing to them, and at the current pace, it wouldn't take too long. As the gods waited, time passed swiftly, 132 days gone by. The scene before their eyes changed, the blue light could no longer maintain its blue hue, becoming a mixture of black and blue. The trident was now 99% black, struggling in vain. Even the initially struggling inverted became more relaxed. By now, even without using his special abilities, the seal wouldn't last much longer. And today, the gods had a premonition, the seal was about to break. After resting, inverted returned to full strength. He looked at the other gods, confirming their agreement. Let's begin. Seeing that all the gods, including Hidden, agreed, inverted gazed intently at the black-blue light. Space distorted, and the gap began to stretch and expand. Black mist surged forth like a tidal wave, enveloping the entire black-blue light, including the trident several meters tall above. The trident, making its final struggle, could no longer bear the weight, and the gods seemed to hear a mournful cry. A wisp of mist drifted in, slowly seeping into the trident. The last sliver of blue light was swallowed, and the entire trident turned black. The black-blue light cluster remained still for a moment, then turned completely black. Black energy soared into the sky. Boom. Crack. A strange sound, like something splitting open, rang out. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.